What's poppin', everybody? Welcome to our fourth episode of our comic book club. This month, we are talking about the legendary comic Batman Year One, written by Frank Miller, with art by David Mazzucchelli. This is one of my personal favorites, so I can't wait to jump into this. But before we get to that, let me say hello to my panel here. So directly below me, we have, making his return to the channel, Sammy 3P. What's up, Sammy? How you doing, brother?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, just like with Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, I'm very excited to talk about this. So I can't wait to hear your guys' opinion on it too. So it's a banger.
It is definitely a banger. And we'll kind of promote stuff at the end, but you just launched a new series on your channel, if I'm not mistaken.
I just launched my new show called Cavecast, and that's where we take an academic approach to the history and lore of Batman. So right on time, perfect timing to talk about this one. So
Heck yeah.
which is funny. I know we're discussing year one, like I'm actually discussing like year one of Batman. I was like, I'm discussing a lot of the Detective Comics stuff, purple gloves, handguns, silk ropes, handkerchiefs, all that fun stuff. But this will be a great jumping off point for this.
Heck yeah. Right below Sammy, we've got my main man who's here with me every Tuesday. We've got Dolan. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, just relaxing. I'm sitting here with my Absolute edition of Batman Year One. It comes in 2 volumes. It's got the recolored, and it's got the original newsprint typed up in, which is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, oversized newsprint.
Hold on. We're taking you.
Check that out. Yeah. Only way to read this.
Now,
I agree.
Okay, I was going to say, Jim, do you agree? Do you prefer newsprint over our new shiny pages?
I can't see very well, so I would like that. But I'm glad you pulled in, because when Dolan there's there, he almost looks like he's Bruce sitting there waiting for a bat to come in and end up giving him his purpose in life. I'm just waiting for it from that side there.
I thought it was more when Commissioner Gordon was interviewing him, and he's got the tiniest robe on.
Oh yeah, but no, that looked awesome. I read mostly digital. I hate to admit it to some people, but that looked pretty cool. And yeah, I have problems. Mainly the digital does come down to my eyesight and reading at like 3 a.m.
Yeah,
so, that's usually the deal.
Honestly, I don't want to say I prefer reading. I'm just so used to reading digital because of, covering comics.
And you get the review copies and things like that. So it's
correct.
And no, I normally 9 times out of 10, I'll agree with you. However, in my opinion, there are some stories that are just so pulp in their essence, like a Sin City or Batman Year One. You've got to read it on newsprint. You got to read it like it's a dirty old a paperback you're reading. And it feels like this is the best way to read Batman Year One.
And I'll tell you, I agree, because I'll go with Josh. The reason, we end up doing, I kind of get jealous sometimes of people who are able to have really cool editions and stuff like that. But by the time that comes out, I've already read it 3 times, talked about it twice and things. So you kind of get like, oh, well, I've already done that, because I do get jealous sometimes of some of these, big omnibuses and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Salty, we'll go through the chat in a second, but Salty's already coming in going, Jesus fucking Christ, paper, gentlemen. I've got to just back this up. I was always more of a paper guy until I started covering comics. And then when I was forced to read digital, I learned to appreciate it a lot more. So a lot of times I'll actually read both versions. I'll, if I like it. If I don't like it, then I'm like out the window.
Yeah.
You can cover more ground with digital for sure.
I do like the guided view if it's the first time I'm reading it for story aspects, because then if you have a crappy writer or crappy editor that maybe didn't, lay out their book properly in terms of the pagination, I'm not going to say anything about Eric July. You don't have anything spoiled for you that should have been a page turn and wasn't. However, there's something about having the full page and seeing the full layout. So like when you have a book like Swamp Thing, you need the full page layouts. It just doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got spoiled with getting stuff early and only to read it.
Even when I record stuff and review it, I need to have double page. I have both pages there when I go, so I can even look ahead and stuff. But reading wise, I don't like the guided view as much. I get claustrophobic, if that actually makes sense while I'm reading. But you are right, when people don't end up knowing the layout and you end up spoiling things, well, yeah, it kind of sucks. So
it does.
Yeah, there's ways to get used to it and whatnot. But a lot of the times for me, it's nighttime reading. It's like I said, I'm not joking, like 3 a.m. and the lights are off. My wife would kill me if I turn on lights to read stuff. So the backlit deal is works. But it's just that again, it's not really for enjoyment. If it was for enjoyment, I do get jealous though, because just
for sure
that's how it should be. But
I go with the backlit. Your wife tries to kill you enough, we
I don't need it during 3 a.m. waking her up reading Batman or something like that. It just drives me nuts.
He's like, these damn comic books.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we jump into it, I do want to get just some general thoughts on you guys. What's your history with the book? So we'll kind of run through this with everyone real quick. And then we'll go to the chat and then really dive into the story itself. But I'll kick things off with I remember reading this when I was younger, but not fully appreciating it. And then when I first started working for Batman News, this was part of the Bible that we had to read. So there was a list of comics that we were required to read on top of other books that weren't comics, but just discuss story or how to create comics, anything like that. But this, for me, I feel like this is the quintessential, like the Batman origin story. And there's a couple of them out there, but for me, this is the one. Like nothing else matters. I don't want to say nothing else matters, but nothing else lives up to what this does for Batman and the lore. Jim, I'm going to go to you. What is your history with the book, and what are your general thoughts before we dive in?
Again, I started our podcast and website and things like that, so I didn't force myself to read things and books and things, but this was one of the first things that I read when I decided, and I ended up jumping into the New 52. So I started reading some stuff, and then I just was asking everybody, and of course this would come up. I mean, it came up, so I ended up reading it. I'll admit, at first I'm with you, like I got it, but some of the things that would have been like wow moments, I'd seen other places and things. So when I first read it, I thought it was really good, but not like a great. But then I ended up rereading it again after reading Frank Miller's Daredevil, and then liked it a little more. And then I started a year one podcast, and we did that there, and then now reading it again. And I think there might have been somewhere in between as well. So you even said before we started, you have not only just read this a lot, you have talked about it a lot. And I think that most people end up talking about comics, especially Batman, would end up talking about this. But it's one of those things I usually, and when you do reviews and when you do read them a couple times for a review, if something gets better each time you read it, then it's good. Like the idea of it, and the opposite is the worst case, where it gets worse and worse, where the glaring, it's become more glaring. But when you read this and you go through it and then you go again and then read it for a podcast where you have to talk about it and then actually talk about it, you realize how good it is, that it is really, really good. And then you also, in those 15 years now, I've also seen a lot of hacks trying to do this themselves and completely flubbing it or not doing it as well, and then things like that. So it really does end up where you just keep realizing how good this is each time you do read it, or each time somebody else tries to recreate it. So I like it. It may not be my favorite story, but I think it's the definitive Batman deal.
Agreed. And were you talking about Chip Zdarsky when you mentioned hacks?
Okay. One of them. And, even sometimes Tom King will even do a couple crazy things, right? But it is that idea of like, you see what they're doing and you just like shake your head and like, you're not Frank Miller. It happens so much. These writers nowadays seem to be more of what they're not than what they are. And that's a sad state of affairs. Absolutely.
Sammy, so clearly you're starting a Batman stream or Batman show series, whatever we want to call it. So you're clearly a fan. Was this one of your first Batman stories that you read? Where does this fall kind of in like Is it required reading for you?
Definitely required reading. So I really started getting into comics around the death of Superman, like the return arc, Nightfall, all that stuff, Emerald Twilight. So I got hit by a car in 3rd grade, and I was
I'm not laughing.
No, it's fine. No, it's I wasn't like insanely injured, but I was bedridden for a couple of weeks, and my aunt would go to like the local library, and they had a graphic novel section, or they at least had like collected editions, and this was like one of the first ones that I read, and I'm going like, wow, this is not what I was expecting, because when you read year one. I had now granted I was in 3rd grade. A lot of the nuance got lost on me. It was something that, like you guys mentioned, with subsequent readings, it has grown on me. There's kind of a grit and an edginess, but yeah. So when thanks, Corey. But when I started out with that, so I was more into like Wally West, Flash, Kyle Rayner, all those guys, because they were kind of being the ones like showing up at the forefront. Even though Batman had always kind of been my favorite, he was kind of on the sidelines. And then when they put this book in my hand, that's when I started kind of going back, and it really is. And they do it in Batman Begins too, where they kind of tease the Joker at the end, and then you kind of just you fall in love with it, because you don't want to see just Batman fight. You kind of want to see this Batman fight the Joker. Like, it was like it's great, and it elaborates so much more. I know you said this backstage, like this is definitely a Jim Gordon a Jim Gordon story, and it elaborates so much on just the corruption of Gotham, and the police department's completely corrupt, the organized crime aspect. When always when I would think of Batman, it was like, well, he also fights the guys in funny suits like Spider-Man does. And then like, no, there's this organized crime element that just makes it so much. It was like it really paints Gotham in a wonderful it really paints Gotham in this certain picture that I wouldn't call Gotham wonderful, but it really does let you know the city that he's going to war with. And and that's really what stuck out to me. But yeah, if it thank you, Aunt Lisa, for picking that one up for me. But yeah, no, this is very much just suggested reading, because a lot of people be like, oh, you got to start off with The Long Halloween, and it was like, no you don't, and there's aspects that I like on both, but I wouldn't say that this one's I mean, this is a wonderful place to start, like
I mean, you get the foundation. I mean, we're clearly going to dive in this, but you get the foundation you need. But yeah, way to go, you said Aunt Lisa, right?
Aunt Lisa,
bomb.com. Drew has died yet again. We'll see what happens with him. But while he is coming back to life, we're gonna head over to the chat and see what all is going on over here. We've got Cajun Corey coming in with, I never read this book, but I've seen the animated movie. Pretty good story. I'm definitely one of those that almost always the book is better. So,
I agree.
Just kind of throwing that out there. But he is dropping in with 9 months of membership. So thank you, Corey. I appreciate that, brother. It's always nice to have you in the chat. I saw your text, by the way. I've got to text you back. It's just I've been busy. But for the 9-month membership, we'll go with this.
Who wants to hang out in a blanket fort with grown men in tiny underoos?
Hello.
We also have Salty Traveling Sea coming in. Such a good graphic novel. Completely agree. Not to show my hand, but you'll hear me gush over this book enough as it is, as we keep going. And we've got Nick coming in. The plot strikes back. Sup, y'all? What's up, brother? How are you? I've got to get you on one of these streams at some point. So, I might be talking to you soon. I don't know how many comics you read, if you're more just a movie guy, TV guy, but we might have to.
It's pretty well rounded.
Yeah, I mean, I figured based on some conversations, so we might have to drag him in at some point. We do have Salty because he's giving us crap earlier with the paper, but he is coming in just breaking balls. Respect, except Josh, F that guy. I mean, that sounds about right. But Salty, for you, sir, since we're being a little humorous, let's go with this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I think I'd rather you just wash the fucking dishes and shut the fuck up! Fucking psychobabble bullshit asshole! I hate her. I hate her!
Salty, thank you, brother. It's always nice to have you in the chat, even when you're busting our balls. Last but not least, well, not last but not least, but we also have Mrs. Sassy Sasquatch coming in with the super sticker for 99 cents. Sassy, thank you for being here. I'm sorry I missed your show on Sunday, but for you, let's do I have anything wholesome? I think this is wholesome.
What are you doing here? 5 words or less.
Out for a walk, bitch.
Hey. But let's see who else is in the chat. We've got JK here, potentially with a controversial take. I'm a heretic. I didn't love year 1. It was just okay for me. Oh, JK. We'll see if you feel the same way when we get done. We've got Jana Banana in the house. Where the fuck is Aaron? Aaron only joins us for Culture Popped. But he should be here not next week, but the week after. So you will get your El Beardo Magnifico before you know it. Also, JK coming in, just a note on comic writers. The new writer seem to miss that the greats are great because those writers didn't try to mimic someone else or, self-insert. So that too.
Oh, yeah. Very fair.
And a huge hello to Cannoli Sasquatch coming in. Hello, everyone. This is the second comic book I ever read when I got into the hobby of collecting, and it's one of the best written about Batman. Absolutely peak stuff here. I love your comic journey because it's so new, and you've just been like blowing through books. So, but 2 more super chats before we dive into the book. I've got Drew in the background. I'll bring him back in a second. But Sassy coming in with a 1-month membership, Joshy and kisses. I will be getting kisses in Vegas. It's just it happens. Life happens. So Sassy, we'll go with this because I don't have it. Oh, I don't have anything about kisses.
I'll show you the tool that's most important to our survival, but fair warning, it's my penis.
Jim, don't you just love these? Aren't
Kisses.
they so on brand? Kisses.
Kisses, that's what you get.
Penis.
That was close enough. That was close
Kisses,
enough.
penis
Yeah, that was
tool.
good.
Kisses, penis tool. Yeah, why not?
It works out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Cannoli Sasquatch, this is because I love you and I can't wait to play lightsabers again soon. All hell Batman. I absolutely love this book. And for you, sir, I have a Batman clip. I'm not playing it because the last time I played it, everyone was like, oh God, my ears. So I've got to fix that. And I didn't think about it until we went live. But we will do here you go, Cannoli. For lightsabers, I should have done a penis tool for you, but we'll do this instead.
Good boy. Good boy.
Yeah.
That's what he gets. I like that we're doing a Batman deal, but you forgot to adjust the Batman clip.
I know. Like everyone, when I played it last, everyone was like, bro, that
Really, it was that loud?
Yeah. And they're like, what? Like my ears. And I was like, my bad. I'll look at it. And then I didn't fix it. But hey, Drew's back. Drew.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Well,
I was gonna say, do you have any general thoughts before we do the deep dive into this?
Yeah, I'll say I first read this when I was in high school, and I read Dark Knight Returns before I read Year One, and I learned about it through Wizard Magazine, learned about it through a local public access channel at 4 a.m. that would talk about comics at a university, and I just remember thinking like, early on, like I just didn't care for the art. At the time it felt very juvenile. It didn't feel like ready for prime time, in my opinion, at that time when I was younger. But as I've gotten older and learned to appreciate art and really learn the craft and the medium, I've come to really truly appreciate the brilliance of the art in this book.
Yeah, we will definitely be diving in to a lot of aspects here because I there's a lot that I want to talk about concerning Mazzucchelli and how he approaches art because people have differing opinions. But before we do our deep dive, one final hello, and that's to Zach's coming in with the Joshy and a heart. I will be on Zach's channel tomorrow night. We've got Cameron Pasha on, or I should say he's got Cameron Pasha on, and I'm joining. But we're going to talk about the horrors of Hollywood. So the horrors, not the, I mean, you know,
not the horrors of Hollywood.
A little column A, a little column B.
They're pretty much hand in hand.
Yeah.
But Zach's good to see you here,
Kardashians, right? Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had a run-in with. I've had 2 run-ins with Kardashians. Nothing actually happened, but Borders bookstore, and then once at In-N-Out.
I refuse to believe that there was a Kardashian in a bookstore.
Yeah, no, they were selling a book.
Oh,
so
okay,
they were doing a signing. Yeah.
At the In-N-Out, you know, I can buy that. Especially was it Chloe? I can see her going hitting at the In-N-Out. Yeah.
No, it was the mom with the 2 younger ones in the G-Wagon. They're the G-Wagon they had. So. We're not moving forward yet because we have another super chat coming in, but we've got Zach's. If Josh was a woman, would be having her first child, allegedly. You know, stuff happens, and I don't know if I have a good clip that's a comeback for that. So we'll just we'll show off sexy Colossus. How about that?
Man, I remember seeing that and going like, dude, that guy is jacked. Like you remember when they made superhero movies and you didn't have to be like insanely
huge?
Like, built? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Daniel Cudmore, I think he's like 6'6", 6'8", somewhere around in there. That they found him at a gym. Like one of the casting directors just happened to be working at a gym and then saw him, was like, hey, have you ever thought about acting? And that's how he got that. Jesus Christ. We're never going to get to the show tonight because Cajun Corey's coming in with $5 child support for. Oh my God! Hey! I should have the child. Well, I guess I don't have the baby, but I'm clearly going to need to start getting more clips. What have we not played? I'm not doing here. We'll go with this.
I want to resolve this like civilized men. I'm not threatening you. I'm unarmed. Good.
Boom.
Whoa, that's from the show The Rookie? That's wild.
Yeah. Don't come at me about my child. All right, let's we're going to shift gears and we're going to focus on the book. We do have a lot to talk about. So diving into the book right away, we kind of get introduced to 2 characters on the front page, or the first page, I should say, and it's going to be Bruce Wayne is one, and it's him making his return. And if you're not fully engulfed in comics, you may miss the fact that Bruce has been gone. He has been away from Gotham for, what was it, 25? No, not 20. He is 25.
It's
so
20 years in this.
Yeah, 12 years here. He's 25 when he returns to the age 25. Mm-hmm. But this is his return. And then as he's coming back to Gotham, because he is like the golden child, being the son of the Waynes, who, you know, we learn what happens to them a little bit later. Most of us already know. But it's told in parallel with Jim Gordon's arrival into Gotham. So what I really love about this is you've kind of got both aspects of this. You've got Bruce coming in on a plane. He's coming in knowing he's got a mission that he wants to start. And he's thinking, I should be on the ground. I shouldn't be up here. And when you look at Gotham from above, it looks nice, but I need to be in the mix with everything that's wrong with the city. And you've got Gordon coming in on a train, and all he's thinking about is his wife and how awful the city is, and that she can't come in on a train. She needs to come in on a plane so she has the perception that this is the normal city. I personally love the way this opens, and as Sammy mentioned, I do think this is more of a Gordon book. You start with Gordon for this book, but Jim, did this kind of opening just kind of pull you in right away?
Yeah, and when you read it again, this is one of those things with this open that you appreciate it everything more each time you read it. You get more of the context, especially like that second time reading it, because then you realize Gordon coming in, pregnant wife, ends up kind of like the last chance, like he's had some problems and now he's getting another chance, but doesn't really care for it and doesn't really like Gotham and is afraid that it's not for his wife. And there's Bruce, who left to actually come back. Like he wants to come back. He's fired up to come back because he's going to start his mission. And so it's kind of like that parallel of one guy who you said one guy doesn't want to be there, but kind of forced to be there. And another guy who could actually, I mean, Bruce Wayne could go wherever he wants. I mean, he could live in Rome the rest of his life, whatever. He's choosing to come back to this. And he's upset that he's seeing it from above. And there's Gordon who's like, oh God, my wife, Barbara's got to come in on a plane. Like there's no way. And you see just the scene in that train is just horrific, So,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's really good.
Yeah, because even you can kind of see it, but it's overcrowded and not posh by any means. And then even when he gets off the train, Sammy, like you've got that guy that's coming in trying to like panhandle stuff to him, sell stuff to him, and then you have Flash that meets him, and it's our first introduction of Flash. So I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, it's perfect. So having these two characters in juxtaposition with one another. You guys hit the nail on the head. Just Bruce Wayne, the Prince of Gotham, his return, and then down on his luck, cop, and then you immediately see what Jim Gordon is in for with Flash, because what a douchebag! Like from the gate, this guy, you immediately know, kind of. He gets awfully chummy with Jim really quick, and you can immediately tell that this is not a good person that we're dealing with. And it's just awesome. I mean, even the still you have right there of just Jim Gordon looking out the window, it's perfect. It really is. It tells you everything you need to know about these two characters going right in. And then, I can't remember, because something happens to Bruce. Well, obviously, besides the press, going after, but like I can't remember who he interacts with after he gets away from the media circus, but everything is like polar opposite for these two characters.
Yeah, one's looking forward to coming to Gotham, the other one isn't.
Yeah. And what I do like about it too is you don't have to tell everybody that Gordon's a good guy. We know that. So then once you see Flash, you actually react right away of, oh man, these guys are corrupt. And we kind of know Gotham's corrupt as well. But when you see that, it's not just the idea of like, oh, what a douchebag. It's like, oh, this guy's bad and Gordon's not going to like this. And it really plays out well.
Well, it raises good questions. We talked about this a couple times with Alan Moore when we were discussing Swamp Thing, where they don't have to ask those, the writer doesn't have to ask those questions. You're immediately asking those questions because you're going, well, how's Jim Gordon going to deal with this? Because we can already see that there's corruption here. We know that Jim Gordon isn't corrupt.
Right.
So how is his story going to play out here? Because we eventually know that he makes it to police commissioner. So we at least know that he has to rise through the ranks, but this doesn't seem like a very good atmosphere for someone who's not going to be on the take, or someone who's not willing to bend the law to do so. So, like, how does this play out?
Yeah.
Well, one thing we see is that we see like how like the corrupt cops and all that, they have their own little network, their own. But then we see later on how Gordon and Batman and Dent, they build their own network to counteract the evil, a corrupt network.
Yeah.
And what I like really is when Flash says, and you set up Gotham being a cesspool.
Yes.
We know the corruption. And then when Flash says to Gordon, this is the greatest city for cops like us, if you know what I mean. And he keeps like giving those things, like he wants Gordon to say, like, yeah, I know what you mean, like wink, wink, like this is going to be great. And that continues on where Gordon just, that's not the type of guy he is. And you know that. So you know it's, and when he calls him Jimmy, he's like, you don't mind if I call you Jimmy, right? And you see Flash is such a jerk. He doesn't wait for him to respond because Gordon's about to like, yeah, I don't like it, but he doesn't even wait because he's a dick. He's a jerk. He really is.
Yeah, no,
he is.
Every way that he's drawn is so douchey, and I love it. You know, like even when he's talking to Loeb here, or like he's just
yeah. I will say, before we kind of even go into detail of some of the corruption we see, like right from the get-go, one of the things this book does incredibly well is provide a lot of context and storytelling efficiently and quickly without making it feel like exposition, because it's not like we're getting to see everything. And it's a combination of how Frank Miller writes his lines, but also how Mazzucchelli draws. I mean, Sammy, you just mentioned like the body language of Flash, but you get an idea of Jim, because even if like this is the first Batman book you pick up, you know from page one Jim's a good guy, because he's not even seeing the seediness of Gotham yet. He's just seeing the just standard, like, oh gosh, this, I can already tell this isn't going to be great. And his immediate concern is his wife.
Yeah. I was going to say, he doesn't say, I wish I was out of this train, or I wish I could have flown. He's just worried about his wife. Yeah, that he doesn't want his wife to be involved in that. And she's pregnant, it's his wife, and he cares about her. But he's not bitching himself, saying like, "Oh man, why didn't they get me a plane to come?" Like any sort of highfalutin deal on it. It sets him up really well.
Yeah. And then, right away, just a few pages in, we see, just we get the hints of the GCPD being corrupt, but you get it here in the scene where Flash is talking about, because, we're basically almost 2 months into Gordon being with the GCPD at this point.
I had a side question. So you see that clown painting?
Yeah.
Is that a dig on Bob Kane?
I don't think so, just because everything in Loeb's office is juvenile. He's got Snoopy stuff, he's got Mickey stuff. Yeah. And I think it's one of the great storytelling aspects that Mazzucchelli has here, that if you're an outsider and you know nothing about Loeb and you walk in and he's like got all this stuff, and he presents himself as like, hey, we want kids to see us as the good guys and family, and you're automatically gonna be like, that guy's a good guy. Like that guy's a good guy.
I will say later on in part 4, there is a call out to a certain very, very famous painter, and it's in the form of a statue. When we get there, I'll point out where it's at.
For sure. But you're also, I will say, the other thing the scene does here is it shows just the depths of the seediness too, that it's even within the church, and that the pastors are trying to get pay off the cops and stuff for things that I'm like, oh gosh. So we're already starting off on not a good place, but Flash is saying that like Gordon doesn't fit in. He's not joining the high life of the GCPD, and this guy he doesn't work. Like, find somebody else. So like from the word go, it's already a bad fit. And again, super efficiently executed. It doesn't feel bogged down. We don't get multiple pages of it. It's just quick scenes with a lot of information told in natural conversations. And that's a rarity these days with modern comics. I do want to talk about, just because there's so much setup here, but to give an idea of a lot of the seediness of Gotham that we tend to see, we do get our first image of the East End, which is kind of where Crime Alley is and all this awful stuff. But it is also a commentary on 1980s New York and what that was like. And if you're familiar with New York in the 80s, I mean, it was rough.
Well, see, like I immediately see this image and think like Taxi Driver,
Bullseye. It's just Bruce Wayne is Bruce Wayne is the wealthy version of with Travis Bickle. Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, he is the wealthy version of him in this story.
I always thought so myself. Yeah, maybe a little bit more sane. I don't think he's going to take his date to to a topless movie,
porno,
but
yeah.
Topless, adult
they're
only.
But at the same time, you can tell they're both narrate. They both narrate their own journeys, and but Bruce Wayne he didn't heal well after what happened to him.
No.
So
no, he did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we learned that he spent the past 12 years like honing his craft, learning different martial arts, learning different forms of I guess stealth, being able to break in.
Yeah,
like,
he mentioned something that's like manhunting and things like that, and I was like, oh, all right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like he's been a little obsessed. I mean, which if you know Batman, he is a little obsessive. But he's had a one-track mind since his parents were killed. And,
I don't want to interrupt, but in Miller, they attribute a lot to this, especially with the Dark Knight Returns and all that. Is there was a certain aspect to like earlier Batman though that like Frank Miller has like done away with, where there was like this kind of like adventurer aspect about him, where it was like, well, he did this, and that's when he decided he was going to be peak human potential, and he was going to be the smartest man. He was going to be like, it was like, no, he is a man on a mission here. Like it was not like before where it was just like, well, he brought himself to peak physical condition and said he wanted to do these things because he had the means to do so. In very early iterations, it was just bored socialite Bruce Wayne,
right?
But on this, I was like, this is really when you start to see where it was like, no, this dude made a vow, and like he's getting into the seedy underbelly of this city, just because of this vow. It's not like, oh, I can do it if it's on a Tuesday. No, he's in it all the time.
He is in it all the time.
He is. Yeah. One thing is, at least he did train a little more than like back in the day when he'd smoke a pipe and do one arm curl while reading a book. Like, that was like the classic deal.
I love that.
Yeah, that's based though. Come on. That's how I work out. Well, I don't smoke a pipe. I've got like a Twizzler or something there. But
I'd smoke my pipe and head down to the hot and sexy.
Yeah. I will say just some aspects here, because Sammy was talking about the change, at least the shift. This story was written following Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they wanted to revamp the line because DC felt a lot of these heroes have been around for roughly 50 years at this point. We need to kind of make it a little more modern. And with Superman and Wonder Woman, they were kind of looking at doing full like origins changes. But with Batman, they didn't feel like they needed to change his origin. They just needed to shift how they presented it. And they wanted to do more of a psychological thing. And
not just that, the numbers were low for Batman.
Yes.
Sales numbers. He was down to like, I think 70. I mean, granted, any book would love to have these numbers now. They were down to 70. They were down to 75,000, which was not good back in the day. And that was
I was watching. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I love bringing this up. So I when Paramount Plus first dropped, I was watching an episode of Double Dare.
Oh yeah.
So I think this episode was in '84, and they were asking these kids like, Bruce Wayne is the alter ego of what superhero, and these kids didn't know. Like the Batman mania had not hit yet. Like it would in '89 for the movie. So like, they were kind of on the outs. It's weird to see because like all my life, it was like he's been pretty prevalent or whatever. But yeah, there was like a point in time, and I guess it was bad in the late 50s too. But
so the late 50s going into the 60s is when it was really hitting its lowest points, and it wasn't until the mid 70s, I believe, that Denny O'Neil stepped in.
Yes.
And at that point, that it was like they were on the verge of canceling the book, and he saved it some. And then I think when Frank Miller stepped in, he really
it was Denny and Neil. When Denny brought on Neil as the artist,
Neil Adams,
yeah. And that's what really saved the book.
What was the Joker's 5-point revenge is the issue that they always like attribute it.
Yeah, that's just one of the many, and it's fun if you get the chance. It's on the iTunes or the Fat Man on Batman. There's a 4-hour-long interview that Kevin Smith has with Neil Adams. It is incredibly insightful. It's hilarious, and he is a master storyteller. He tells the whole history his hiring through the years and what happened at DC Comics.
I had the privilege of meeting Neil Adams at a Comic-Con a couple of years back before he passed, and it was kind of a slow day there, and he shot the shit with me for a couple hours, and he had some pretty awesome stories. He was quite a character.
Yeah, he was my first guy. He was my first job in comics, working for Neil.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, he was he was definitely, could tell that I was a little like starstruck, and he was like, "No, you can sit, you can talk." And you're like, "Oh, this is so cool."
Neil Adams. I do want to bring up, because Frank Miller, I feel like, was a very specific choice to do this book, and I think it's kind of twofold. One, you had The Dark Knight Returns, which was clearly a massive hit for them, so why not go back in that well? But I feel like DC had to have like come to this at the point of saying like, hey, what he did with Daredevil and making him such a street level hero, that's what we want for Batman. And it's kind of weird to think about, because I think a lot of times when we think of Batman and Daredevil, we look at Daredevil as almost being a copycat of Batman in terms of how he's presented and what he does. But it's honestly a little flipped to a degree. I mean, Batman came first. He's always been street level. But this type of seediness, like Frank did it in Daredevil first. And then the other thing I really wanted to point out is if you look at Frank Miller's works from earlier in his career, he has more of a less jaded outlook on New York for Daredevil, and even Gotham, which is clearly a stand-in for New York. But I'd learned that in the late 80s or mid to late 80s, I think it was 85, 86, they were robbed and or mugged like 3 times within a 2-month period.
Yeah, Frank got held at gunpoint. Yeah, 3 times. Yeah.
No, so, I really like how you said that about especially with his take on Daredevil, where so very much in earlier Batman stories, like the signal would be on, he's being called for a certain reason, or whatever. It was like you never saw him kind of like scuttling about the streets of Gotham and actually just taking in the city looking for trouble, right. Or you would see someone being mugged in an alleyway, and of course he drops down and stops the thing, or something like that. But you never saw him like taking in intel and stuff like that. It was like this is really the kind of the first times you've seen that. Now I know that he has various like alter egos like Matches Malone and stuff like that, but even then you still didn't really see him when you saw him, Bruce Wayne, as Matches Malone. He has already infiltrated where he was had to go, and you try he's starting out at ground level here, and it's awesome to see. And I don't think a smarter writer, or I don't think how can I put this? I don't think a writer, unless you were as talented as him, would have known to start here.
That's fair. I mean, I think what we see with a lot of the greats is they just clearly know how to approach a story. When we look into the narrative of this scene, like, the first couple of things we see of Bruce is him returning to Gotham, him talking about he wants to be in the streets. He wants to be like engulfed in the seediness because that's where he wants to operate. He's looking to slay the demon from the belly of the beast type of thing. But this is his first venture out there. And I mean, it's a lot of low level street crime, but it's still bad situations. And then I think sometimes you can be like, all right, yeah, it's like people selling drugs and people prostituting, like, all right, but you're never going to get rid of it. But we do quickly see just how bad it is. Because as he's going through, we see a pimp, and then we meet Holly. So, Jim, how effective do you think that is, having Holly there of all people?
Yeah, it's pretty effective. I mean, it's a little girl. And he's going, and he's going through. First up, though, I think we forgot to do something. I want to know why Sammy was up that late watching Double Dare, but that's beside the point. But
I didn't say I was up late.
I just got that it was like 2 a.m. or something, which my brother actually was on Double Dare. So there you go.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah.
The actual app had just dropped, and we were just watching it at a friend's house.
Random
I was like, I remember this show.
It was a pretty good show.
Yeah, that was a good show.
when you end up seeing Holly, though, it's and here's the thing that I like about this is that you have Bruce. He gets in his disguise. First off, he thinks that he's like the coolest guy ever, and he thinks that this is going to fool everybody, which he doesn't. You even have the pimp right away say like, "You're a narc, whatever. That costume's old, done out." But when you see Holly and just the idea where Bruce, big dude, and Holly's just so small, and she's like, "Hey, and he says, how old are you?" And she's just going for it. And it's so awful. And then when you get her pimp's like, you got to look to, and then starts like pushing her around and stuff. And the thing you got
to whore better.
Yeah, got to whore better. You got to see who wants what you're giving there, baby. And like stuff like that, though. And in that, you're waiting, and there's that whole fight in Bruce's mind, which I really like. And really what I get from it, and the whole inner narration of him is, he can't trust himself because he's going to go and he's going to see some bad things, but he knows he shouldn't engage because that's not what he's there for. He says, I'm going to go in, I'm going to scope things out. I'm here for reconnaissance. I'm going to look, but he keeps having to remind himself, like, don't get involved, but he knows he will. And at this point, it's such a crazy thing to see Bruce and like, how is he going to get out? What is he going to do? Because you think he's going to have to save this girl. And he can't because that would accept. And it's such a crazy scene in it, but he doesn't want to get involved, but then he can't help it. He really can't help it. And then when Holly stabs him in the leg, it's like, oh my God, that is so crazy. Because again, it's a girl who doesn't know any better, doesn't know what's good or bad or whatnot because of her situation.
That's what we were saying. So
there,
we compared it to Taxi Driver, right?
Yeah.
So when he goes and at the end he saves Jodie Foster and he gets all these praise, it was like, no, the Gotham is worse.
Yeah,
because she's in on it. She starts, she stabs him.
I mean, every hooker shows up and starts beating the crap out of Batman. He's like, what the hell?
Yeah. And I couldn't. Yeah. So it's crazy too because it's like he's clearly trying to save her, and she's like, nope.
Yeah,
and
she's in on it.
Yeah, she stabs him in the leg, and she goes, "Get him."
Yeah, that's like, come on, guys,
calls the dogs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And I couldn't tell if that one hooker was just a handsome woman, or
I thought it was Granny Goodness at first. It was like Granny Goodness. I'm like, holy, right?
It was a white Bob the drag queen. That's what it was.
Yeah, no, it's just that one in they always have her in South Park where she's dance. Would anybody want to dance?
What gets me too in the scene specifically is the idea again where Bruce wants to save the city, but does the city want to be saved? And the idea of can he do it? Because some of this stuff is just going to have to go. And then a lot of people will bring it up, when they want to sound smart or whatever, like, why isn't he stopping this or whatever? And you can't stop everything, but this shows the idea of a city that's so corrupt and so bad. Just like for real, like this is a real scene. It's crazy and it's sad that it is, but it's very real and realistic. The idea they don't want to be saved because Bruce tries to save them. That's going to cause them more problems when Bruce leaves. And now they're just stuck there with the pimp who's now going to really take it out on him and things like that. But he's trying to do something, but they don't want it right now.
I do want to kind of highlight too that it's very clear Bruce is skilled. Like he knows how to do things. He knows how to fight. He knows how to it's very clear he knows how to do that. But he only knows, and this scene shows us perfectly. He only knows how to do those things in a controlled environment. Yeah. So now he's in a chaotic environment and he's realizing very quickly he knows how to do these things, but he doesn't necessarily know how to put them in practice. Mm-hmm. And I love that we get to see that because his first venture is an utter failure. Like, he gets
and he knows it too.
Yeah.
He's saying to himself, like, this is a mess. Like, what did I do here? It's so great.
Right.
He gets stabbed by a little girl.
And then like he's getting beat to crap, and then the cops show up, and then they go after him, and it's just
one of many car crashes in this story. There, in 4 parts, there's a ton of car crashes. That's the first one.
And then Selena gets involved even before, and I like though, like you said, it's one of those things. If you play a sport and things like that, and you go or do anything that you play. And then you go against somebody who really doesn't know how to play. You don't know what to do because they don't react the same way. They don't go that same flow, and it really throws off your deal. And that's what it seems to happen. But he does end up getting his group back a bit when Selena comes in because she knows karate, and he says she knows karate, but only karate, and he's actually able to like wallop her because she's following a thing. He didn't train to get 3 hookers stabbing him and kicking him in the balls. Like, if he did, he does prepare for everything. That's the one thing he didn't prepare for, and it's crazy. But
one contingency he doesn't have.
Yeah, really. He's like a little girl and these other hookers. One might be a man. I didn't prepare for that. And then when the police show up, it's basically the idea of, okay, this is done one night. And remember, he's doing this for his parents, and he talks to them and the deal. And like, I failed you. I'm done. And it's so crazy.
Doesn't he actually get shot by the police, or am I remembering?
Yeah, I think he does.
So he gets shot. He gets shot. It kind of takes him out. He gets handcuffed. He's kind of fading in and out. He's losing blood. Because you even have the line that one of the officers is like, "Hey, this guy's dying. We need to get him to a hospital." And he's like, we'll book him first, and then So that again, showing you the seediness of the police. But you kind of think he's gonna die. He does manage to be a total badass and escape the cops though, because he breaks the freaking handcuffs, which holy shit, and then decks him in another car crash, as Drew's point. And then he gets free and car crashes his way home. And we'll get to that bit in a second. But Jim, you mentioned Selena. And there's a lot of opinions about Selena Kyle in this book, because Selena Kyle is the lady of the night. And not only that, she's like a dominatrix type lady of the night.
And she also appears to be a woman of color in this.
I think it's just the lighting here. She's got this. So it depends. There was a partner book that came out just around the same time of this that was a Catwoman centric story by Mindy Newell called Catwoman, Her Sister's Keeper. And she's very clearly white, even in some others, but it looks like she could be of mixed ethnicity here. So either way, like, I think the big thing with this is deciding to take a character like Catwoman, who's essentially been there practically since day one.
Yeah.
And then making her a prostitute. That's a bold move.
Oh, by the way, to be clear, that's the part that I have a problem. I don't care what race they made Selena Kyle. I didn't like that they made her a hooker.
Yeah,
no, I know.
I never had a problem with it. I actually didn't
either.
mind it. I'm a Selena Kyle. I love Selena and I love Catwoman. And the idea of having it just made it, again, it made her like rise from it first off. And even in this, like, there's a progression, like a weird progression, even with Holly, where Batman comes in and starts scaring all the criminals. But you even see at one point, Holly, she starts like getting inspired, not inspired to be whatever, but getting excited. Like, this is a little girl who probably doesn't get to have a lot of fun. I mean, really, look at her life. And then in the end, I mean, her fun is, oh my God, explosions, and Batman's there, and she gets all happy and all excited for it. So it's a pretty nice thing. But it even has where Selena through this ends up where, I don't know, the idea that you have her being that dominatrix, and it does seem like she's perfect for it because she hates it, and she hates like it just, I don't know. I never was that bothered by it, because she's also, you get some plays here of she's probably still involved because of Holly. She doesn't want Holly to be there by herself, and she's protecting her and all these other things that kind of tie into it. But she does get out of it, and even gets inspired in this to kind of get the costume and start doing some thinking, which she would try to get out of doing what she's doing. It is a weird choice though, and it does throw you off at first.
It's very Frank Miller.
It's very Frank Miller. It also feels very, I mean, of all these things, that's the thing that feels like Elseworlds of it, that it could be a different Elseworld story type deal. But I never really had that much of a problem with it. I don't know. I just didn't, because it feels still like Selena just at a bad time, and then Batman comes in and things start changing. Gordon too. I mean, Gordon coming in is going to change things for the better as well. And I think that kind of sets the tone of how bad it was and what might have happened if Batman and Gordon never showed up like this. And so I kind of go by that route.
I mean, I understand that, but
it's rough though. I mean, it is rough. I'll give you that. But yeah,
you know, I always imagine Catwoman as, you know, someone who kind of went into the, you know, who was in kind of used to being in the higher echelon of society and deals with those upper circles, and just steals anyway, just for the hell of it. And and now granted, you can still pull that off here, but just to say like, oh, but they caught her at a rough time, and I was like, okay, well, this is a real rough time.
And I know some people have commented. I've heard people comment about like, why would Batman ever get with somebody like? But I don't even go with that either.
She's just that hot.
Yeah.
You go after the girl you can't get. You go the girl your opposite.
Yeah. So Drew, real quick before I kind of speak my piece on Selena being a prostitute, does this bother you or no?
No, and I don't mind it. I kind of enjoy it, and it's weird, like how it took a 180 society wise after that, but now it feels like now in society, like slut shaming is a bad thing. It's like, no, it's cool to be a slut. It's cool to be hot and do all this shit. Like, and it's like, okay, I guess this would be kind of accepted now. I think
support
honestly.
Sex workers. Okay, come on, T. Franklin.
That's who I was thinking of.
There you go. She's in a wheelchair.
Thanks a lot, Josh.
Yeah, I will say that for me, this doesn't bother me either. In a lot of ways, for me, it kind of informs how Catwoman operates because she uses her sexuality constantly. Like that is one of the things that she knows is her greatest weapon is her sexuality. But even sex itself, she's had sex with multiple characters throughout the run of comics, and she's always kind of been nonchalant about it. Like it's not, a sacred thing for her. So for me, this explains why. But I also feel like, to your point, Jim, it does in some ways feel like she's there because of Holly, and it kind of builds this I guess her push, because and especially when you get into the 90s and the 2000s, you see a lot of stories with her like really going into heroic moments when kids are involved.
Yep.
And it's because she's had a crappy childhood and she grew up with this nonsense. And for her, it's like, no, I'm going to prevent this from happening.
And then she knows what happens when things, and the realistic bit of this is like, Selena's not really there to say like, I'm going to save Holly. And like, she can't do anything about it. And I think that she just wants to be there to make sure on the like she doesn't end up, going too far or dying. And then when she even sees this fight, she ends up getting upset. I don't think she's upset she has to leave this guy who's there begging for the, she's just like, we can't do this, as well as Bruce saying, I like the line where he's like, real good, Bruce. You really put the fear of God in them as he's getting the crap beat out of him. But yeah, like the idea that I think Selena, almost like she's there to protect everyone. And it kind of deals with the cat, that whole play of her. I think it feels pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, the line that she says when she jumps into action to fight Bruce is nobody hurts Holly.
Yeah.
So that to me, that gives you a lot of her, perspective.
And just just because of her sister as well, like, and then you get Holly, you kind of get that even later. If you follow, Selena's deal of how things have been and how bad and things like that. So I do like it.
Yeah,
I feel like this is as best as they could have done that idea. I still just don't prefer it.
Yeah. I will say, if you've read, oh God, what was it? Was it Brubaker that did? Yeah. I do feel like this kind of plays well into that. Although I think for that they had originally changed because it was only like 5 years after this they redid her origin where she like grew up in an orphanage,
and all that stuff like that.
Yeah. And then fast forward to New 52 and they give her the Batman Returns origin where she gets pushed out of a window and thanks Ando Cindy like ruining everything. But yeah, definitely a controversial thing, and people had some feelings, and people still have feelings about this. There were people at Batman News that I wrote with that absolutely despise this origin, and I'm just I'm in one of those that like, I'll take it over the others, honestly. So.
Absolutely.
I mean, one for Zoe Kravitz's adaptation of the character.
Oh, for sure. I know Drew doesn't really care for that film, but yeah.
No, not at all. No.
I have mixed feelings on it. It should have stopped after the second act.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and actually, before we move on, I've got two comments I need to highlight because they are super chats. So give me 1 second and then we'll get back into things. But we had Sigma Comics drop in, HH, finishing the final touches on Calico Book 2. But I want to send a warm shout out to my guys. Batman Year 1 is Miller Brilliance. His love and understanding for both Batman and the city is on full display. Completely agree with you.
Not just that, but storytelling, period.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Shoot, I'm very clearly. Oh, here we're gonna do this for HH. Yeah.
Oh man. Man.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. We also have Zach's coming in with $5 Canadian dollars. I haven't read this at all. Zach's, get on it, man. But I recommend the fan film Gordon. It has an interesting take on the Joker. I will have to check that out.
Yeah, I'm getting it set up on my queue as soon as we're done here. Thank you,
Yeah.
Zach.
We will do. I don't know what this one is.
I'm vengeance.
Forgot I had.
Oh, okay, I'm aware.
I forgot I had that Batman clip. That's not the Batman clip that blows everyone's ears out. And it's also just black, so I couldn't tell what it was. But hey, it's perfect. Nice. But yeah, thank you guys. I do appreciate the support. We're getting a ton of support tonight. Got to get more clips if this is gonna become a trend. Which, by all means, make it a trend. Yeah. I'm not complaining about super chats. I do want to move on because as Bruce is, facing his trials on the East End, Gordon is really kind of facing some stuff with the GCPD. It's very clear that he's not fitting in. Flass isn't having it because Gordon's not becoming one of the boys. So, Gordon's been put on night shifts. He's requested to get off night shifts like 4 weeks prior to this. They're still putting him on. And then one of the nights that he's going to work, Flass gets some of the boys together and they put some little, face masks on and they beat the ever living snot out of Gordon. And then what does Gordon do? Gordon's like, all right, you know what? Eye for an eye. And then he just turns it right back around on him. So, Sammy, I know you said this is one of your favorite moments of the book. I just want you to go through what do you like about it? Why do you think it's awesome? And we'll go from there.
Okay. So it's one of those things where this could have easily been a turning point in the story either way, where, it was like, let's say they roughed him up, but it gives you like this sense about, Jim Gordon where he's sizing them up and he says like, oh, this one's probably a Green Beret. I'll try to, I'll try to take it easy on them. And it was like it the way that the panels are drawn, like, it's all silhouettes, it's all the night, but they let you know that, Flass still is like a grown man walking around in his varsity jacket. It's just really well done here, and it shows you, and that's another reason that we talked, we mentioned earlier, where this feels, just as much like a Jim Gordon story. Like, Jim Gordon isn't a slouch. Like, he's not this old man sitting in an easy chair smoking a pipe in this iteration. He's formidable. He's seen action. They don't really allude to what his experience is, but like, the quote Arnie, I eat Green Berets for breakfast. Like, it's like, that type of shit. I just love that, it was like, oh, you guys thought you were gonna size me up. No. I'm sorry. You're mistaken.
Yeah. Well, you get those kind of like offhanded, light military references to clearly he's got a military background. Mm-hmm. And even when he gets jumped, he's aware enough that they're coming at him from the front and they're kind of being vocal and loud. He's like, okay, this is a tactic. There's a dude behind me, and he's spot on. And he decks the dude that's behind him. And then, eventually it's a numbers game. But yeah, like, he's definitely not, is he aging? Yes. Is he out of that kind of lifestyle? Yes, but that doesn't mean that's not in him. And I love kind of seeing that Gordon can get a little rough. I don't want him being like Batman. I hated the whole New 52 thing where suddenly he's, Bunny bought Batman and he's just as good. Like that, no, but
that doesn't fly.
Him kind of being able to, do some slobber knocking, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and also too, it's so they have been screwing with him. They have been, and was like, oh, okay, like this is if this is how you want to play this, it's not gonna go well for you. And it's a wonderful exchange of dominance, and things start kind of turning around for him a little bit, like on the force, because now they realize that they just can't intimidate him either. So, I mean, and it says so much within only just a couple of panels. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm going to say that the storytelling here is brilliant. Real quick, because you mentioned the Letterman jacket, and it's something that I've noticed before, but I've never fully consciously thought about it. And yeah, Flass is totally that guy that peaked in high school and never came out of it. But like you mentioning it, that he's probably in his 30s at least, probably late 20s, early 30s, and he's still walking around in his Letterman jacket.
Yeah. The only thing that sucks is he can seemingly button it up still. I've seen these guys where I'm like, oh god, I went to high school with them, they're wearing the jacket and they cannot button it anymore.
Yeah,
you got to give that up. I mean, seriously. And when you meet those guys too, they're always, man, remember this game? I'm like, I kind of moved past that. I've moved past a lot of that.
I actually had a guy talking with me like that the other day, where he was like, well, you used to get chicks in high school. And I was like, 20 years ago. It was like, well, you're married. I was like, yeah, I'm good at making my wife happy. I was like, everybody else, I don't know. I was like, I'm sorry that you're single again, but like, I'm a long ways away from being a wingman, dude. I'm completely checked out in that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had my varsity jacket, and I guess if there was like a homecoming game or something, I would put it on. But I was like, there is something to be said about someone who just can't let it go. I mean, I know I bought the Lions one, but that was just because, this is the jacket that Eddie Murphy wore in Beverly Hills Cop. Then I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll wear that to a Lions game. I get that's not the same thing that we're going here. I was like, I'm sure that says like Gotham High or whatever, and then that's when he peaked, and he just can't let it go. I'm sure he had a banger season. And
scored a ton of touchdowns, man.
Yeah, just that Uncle Rico vibe.
Yes.
And unfortunately, guys like that, especially if they are physically gifted and something like that, sometimes they need the shit kicked out of them to
Well, Drew, I do want to come to you, because as much as this is just getting the shit kicked out of him, it's also it's a smart play on Gordon's part, because there's other guys that he knows jumped him and he could also jump in, but he lets them leave, he lets them do their thing, they go on their way. But it was strategic because he knew Flass would never admit to being beat up. So it's the psychological thing. And then I thought this was hilarious just because it's more shame that Flass has to live with and never speak about, and that's almost going to kill him worse. But he doesn't just beat the crap out of him. He strips him of his clothes, handcuffs him, and then leaves him laying face down in the snow. So Drew, what did you think about just the psychological approach and the kind of chess match that Gordon had going on as well?
Well, a couple things. One, I did enjoy. I do enjoy it. I do like that the badassery of the Jim Gordon, but it seems kind of inconsistent. I think there's one flaw. It's the badassery of James Gordon throughout the story, because we really see it early on here, but we don't really see it later on. It seems like it just kind of disappears after a while, unless that was just to show it, just that one instance. But
I have thoughts on that, but we'll get to it later.
Okay, yeah, that's probably the one flaw here I would have to say for the Jim Gordon character, that inconsistency. But I did like it here. I did like kind of seeing it. It's enjoyable. But this is one of two times where we see Flass get his ass handed to him. And the next time, after his encounter with Batman, is even funnier. That's the best instance, in my opinion.
He isn't human.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Jim, did you have any thoughts on this scene before we move on?
Yeah, I just am glad they didn't show him stripping Flass and putting the handcuffs on. It would have been a really odd looking scene. Like when you get to the end of it, you're like, okay, that's pretty funny and all that. But I'm like expecting Flass like during this, like, what are you doing with my pants, dude? Like he's just pulling his pants up.
Oh, I assumed he was out cold.
He is out
right?
cold.
Yeah.
He has to
Yeah.
be. He has to be out cold. Just the idea, though, the hilarious part is to think like Gordon doing this, probably chuckling a bit, and then when Flash wakes up the next day, and just like, what the hell happened to me? And even just the smart thing about the idea of the gun and throwing the gun in the woods and saying that'll get all rusted up and that'll end up like that's, you know, thinking of the whole scene, even in such a almost ridiculous scene the way it is. But what you were saying before got me, because when I said at the beginning, you play off the idea that, you know, Gord, he's a good guy. This actually, it actually shocked me when he ended up going, because you don't think of him as, you know, taking on a whole bunch of guys like this, and he's pretty badass. I mean, going and doing this, and then, like you said, using the smarts of he's not going to report this, but also knowing that Flash will probably be the last one out, letting the other guys go, playing that whole deal to then go and get him and make sure that Flash knows it's him and beats the living crap out of him, even says, you know, throws the bat to him and stuff like that is really badass.
Yeah.
Oh,
well done. And to be clear, for everyone that's watching, this is all in the first issue of 4 issues. Everything we've covered so far. Like, it's just so they cram so much in there. And then we do in this first issue, you know, back at Wayne Manor with Bruce. And this is the moment where we get to see him decide to be Batman. And, you know, even with the training and everything, Bruce kind of referenced that he feels like something's missing, but he doesn't know what. And then we get this. But what I really like about this is this contemplation of just giving up. And he's like, I was wrong about how I approached this. I you know, almost kind of like, I'm not going to be able to save the city. It was a little delusional. I've let myself down. I've let my family down. But this is going to be the night that I die. And you have the thoughts of he can like ring the bell and Alfred can come save him, but he hesitates. And then you have this bat fly into the window, and then that's his realization, like, oh, I need to create an icon, an image that they're going to fear. And
I hate how this scene is depicted in the animated version of this.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
No, this I love. See, like the smile, the recognition there. It was like, and it's just the way that it's just the way that the internal dialogue is read and everything. I was like, I think whoever directed that animated does not understand this scene in the slightest. Where, you know, it's there's no whimsy there. It was like when you see that smile of him in recognition of the bat, he's like, no, that's what I'll do. Not like this moment of like, they read it so seriously, you know. If I ring the bell, you know, it doesn't fly the way that it does here. Now, granted, I'm with you, Josh. I always think that the comic is going to be better. You know, you can convey more. You know, you have to have a lot of acting chops. Now, granted, I think animation you can convey a lot more than you can with live action, but for some reason it doesn't translate the right way. I don't know. It just bugs me, because
I think one of the problems, the context of this and getting to it, like, I mean, all the shit that has happened to Bruce to get to this point, you kind of forget, some of them forget about it. And it almost feels like the idea of, Father, please give me this sign. And like, you know, then Thomas Wayne from heavens throws a bat. They actually play it like so literally of like, yes, Father, I will. No, he's like, thinks he's going to die. He's desperate to see, like, what do I need to do when this bat comes in? He smiles because he's like, that's it. Why didn't I think of, like, holy crap, like the idea? And then he's pronouncing to instead, but it's not like, thank you, Father, for
exactly
this bat into my life. And they end up making it so over the top of this sign that but it
yeah,
is just like a coincidence.
divine
like,
intervention is
yeah,
exactly
and
what was not needed here. Where it was like it should. They're having divine intervention where it should be an epiphany.
Yeah, and an epiphany that almost seems like Bruce thinks it's funny that he didn't think of it before.
Yeah,
like, oh shit! Why did I think of this? This is it. Like this is it. Like,
or even going like, this will be great. This will at least be interesting. This will be great.
Exactly.
Like, look at that little smirk he's got there. He's like, all right, we'll give this a run. All right, cool. You know, like
that's right. Why not?
Yeah.
I do want to ask, who had the worst take, the animated series and how they presented it, or Tom King, who felt like this clearly represents that Bruce just wants to commit suicide by criminal.
It's the worst.
Tom King.
And that ring of the bell became such a, oh my god, it was so just you
obnoxious.
And Drew's talked about, you know, the idea of mentioning, and he would know even more, like when you see a guy doing that storytelling wise, you just realize like they don't know what they're doing, and they're just trying to get moments out of like pretty much like false moments, and trying to do things that just they don't fit the character or the story.
Right.
It drives you nuts.
I go, see what I did there?
See what I did there
with the bell?
Yeah,
you remember the bell, right?
The bell, and the letter.
One thing I do want to applaud here in this book is the colorist here. On these pages, not just this one, but he does such a terrific use of the yellows, the reds, the blues. Here in these last 2 pages with the yellow as the backdrop, it's beautiful.
Agreed. I think the colors are really striking because for the most part, this is a very monotone book in terms of the characters when you see them. And then in moments, you have these just bright flashes of color for impact. And it works so well. Because I think of the image we had even of Bruce on the East End, all those colors, like it hits you because it's a little kind of different than what we've been seeing. Selena in her window, that pinkish red. The yellow here, we get more later. There's a blue sky at one point, and the blue just really pops. So,
it actually reminds me a lot of Watchmen, like the color choices and the certain aesthetics that you see, especially that one shot, that one still that you said where he's kind of walking down. I don't even know what you would call it, like porno theater lane. In the East End, and I was like, "Oh, this is right out of Watchmen." This looks like Gibbons.
Indeed. So Bruce decides to become Batman, and then we get to see him set out for his first night out. And yet again, this is another moment that I absolutely love. And, we kind of got to see this translated into Batman Begins. I mean, we saw a lot of this translated into Batman Begins. But, it's his first night out, and it's almost like, I've got it. I've got the Batman costume. I've got it figured out. We're going to be effective now. And yet again, he struggles. So, Jim, Drew, I don't know if either one of you want to jump in.
You go, Drew.
I'll just say like he's learning. He's still learning, and he's just a lucky amateur because he's still figuring everything out. And he's just a night something like this. He's never prepared for. Being surrounded by 3 guys on a ledge with stealing a TV. And he gets lucky. I like that.
Yeah, I like any movie where like people are too much to go to. Oh, there he is kicking ass. Even if he was like trying to like grab somebody who was like, not so capable and he was going to do it. But you see 3 guys and and they get cheap shots. It's again, it goes with almost the idea of Batman and detective work as well for me. Like he's always right. He always ends up. I'd like to see him fail a little but still struggle, because you get more of that idea of him wanting to save that guy from dying while he's getting the crap kicked out of him and then able to stop it. That's more of a, oh my God, like that's crazy what he has to do. But it also shows you why he has to learn. Like if he just went out and these 3 guys, boom, 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 he would just be like, okay, I mean, what's the deal? And so with that, and they do at first, he does end up shocking them with that costume, and he's real impressed with himself. I mean, he's like, it is working. This is awesome. But then he ends up jumping into a situation where there's not a lot of room. You got three guys. There's the guy with the TV, the guy falling, and he has to react to it. And I like actually seeing the Batman in this that's not prepared for everything yet.
Yeah.
You have to do things and fail a little before you're going to be prepared for everything. And it does a really good job of showing it. It's almost like the idea of an action movie when you have like a Jackie Chan who would get the living crap kicked out of him, but that's better the way that, he's almost more badass doing that. And I thought that this scene was pretty good.
I love too that this guy's falling, and what really kind of turns the tides to make him struggle is that he saves the kid.
Yeah, he's got to save the guy.
Yeah, and then the two other kids are just like laying, Hail Marys on him, punches, and it's like, yo, stop! I'm trying to like save your dude here, man.
Oh yeah, and the best part of this is that as we see the TV fall, we see all these actions take place before the TV hits the ground. He catches the guy, pulls him up, and then that's when like the TV smashes and hits the ground.
Yep. So really good stuff. And yeah, it's nice to see him kind of struggle as he's making his way through. On the Gordon front of things, like it's interesting because Batman is becoming this slightly known mythology within the city. People are talking about it. The police are aware of it. They're looking for it, but are they really looking for it? Or for him, I should say. So I liked this dynamic because you've got Gordon, who you can kind of tell based on the depictions that are up here. I mean, yes, these are people's descriptions of what they saw of Batman, but you can tell he's kind of like, all right, what? Like he's not all in on finding this guy. And then he's sitting in front of a room full of corrupt cops who are like, no, this guy is hurting our business and ruining life for us. We're going to find him. But Jim, I would love to kind of hear you kind of discuss what you maybe liked or didn't like about this process. And then we mentioned it earlier, but the Flash, how he jumps in.
He's great. And again, you're there and you're going to get a bunch of guys, Flash, all of them, where first off, they don't really seem to want to catch him anyway. And the idea of this vigilante and Gordon, but when you start talking, these guys they want to claim that he's this crazy, one is a full out demon. Like, and the idea of them getting word about this, and this is also showing that Batman's plan's working. They think that he's supernatural, that he's this crazy deal. But once Flash gets involved, Flash is such a dick that he'll never want to admit that, oh yeah, it was a guy dressed in these tights and he beat the crap out of me. It's like the guy's wingspan was this and he wasn't real and he had these, and it actually goes and shows you in a crazy way of Flash over exaggerating, but then showing you what the real thing is of the Batarangs. He had claws and they're all laughing at him and they think and he's getting mad. And I like that it's done too, where you don't actually even see it. You have to imagine some of these things going, and it makes me laugh a lot. But again, you have a lot of times where you'll have these like lineup things and they are way over the top with the deal. I mean, I love where they still have that A up, like it would be that, like this gargoyle guy. Like, I think they could go by that. But the big deal of, is he good? What is he doing? What is he messing up? And you do see lines are being drawn with this, and how some of the, even people are supposed to be legit aren't, again, because it's messing up their business, and then who's connected. And I thought that it's done really, really well. And then you have S in there who's just kind of hanging and suddenly just like shows up in the scene. You're like, oh, who's that? Which is a cool way to introduce her as well. But again, you're there in this thing. And the one thing that maybe they could have had, you never saw them doing any sort of, getting together and like the normal stuff that they would end up talking about. Now, suddenly Batman's there and it becomes this, and soon enough it's going to end up where these pictures are now going to be Riddler, Joker, Penguin, like everything's about to change. So that is also there. But I do like, it is funny when you're there and you just see Flash there, just beat the crap, broken bones,
the neck brace, the sling,
and he's just there like a joke. But yeah,
and you've got that line that's kind of hiding under Hunting the Batman, but he's like, not he.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Again, because Flash too doesn't want to admit that a guy beat him up. He didn't report Gordon because he didn't want to admit. And Gordon said he's going to end up saying 30 guys jumped. Like, it has to be this extravagant deal. But he reports the Batman, but it's not a real guy. It's a demon. It's this, and it plays well with Flash. He's so integral to the book, and every time I go to reread it, I always forget about Flash until that first scene when he said, "Hey, Jimmy boy," or whatever. I'm like, Flash, you piece of shit. And then, but he really is the guy who sets a lot of things in motion throughout this whole book. Like,
absolutely.
They really don't do him justice in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
I will say, as much as they are kind of not seriously looking for a Batman, I mean, they are, but they aren't. It's not the priority, I'll say. But they are looking at it from the aspect of it's a vigilante. We can't really have a vigilante because it might inspire other people to come out there and do the same thing. But there is someone that's working within the crime system that we learn is helping Batman, and that is Harvey Dent. So, whoever wants to jump in, did you like that quick little just kind of throw in of Harvey Dent and Bruce working together?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was afraid that it was just going to be, the first time I read it, I thought it was just going to be a mention. And then we would because a lot of times in stories, they'll just throw, oh, here's this, or all of a sudden some guy will be walking around, look, you look like a Joker, and he'll laugh and like stupid shit like that. But this is too good. And I do like where you do see again, which, if the more you know, obviously it makes it even better. But the idea, most people know the Two-Face story, so it even makes that even more tragic of what happened, where Harvey was one of the few guys, him and Gordon, but one of the few guys that were good and were trying to do good and recognize people trying to do good like a Batman.
Yeah. It also kind of sets this precedent that Harvey was Batman's first ally, within the crime, the world of police, I guess, policing. He's not an officer, but still. It's the idea of, even Harvey recognizing the city is so corrupt, there's no way we can do this the right way. Like, we've got to kind of break out of the box a little bit. But yeah, I love this stuff. We also do kind of start getting the introduction of the Falcone crime family, which Drew, I think it's one of your favorites, right? Like, you loved what they did in the Batman, and like, you love the Falcones, right?
Oh, I love seeing the greasy Italians all oiled up. They're going swimming and hitting the saunas. Yeah, it's just what I wanted to see. I will say, visually and motivationally, I will give. I can't believe I'm gonna fucking say this. I got to give the kind of nod to the Batman, because I did like how Falcone was portrayed in the film, as opposed to really here. I wasn't a big. He really was kind of like a non-factor, honestly, in this story. And so that's why I got to go with got to give the Batman the nod there, and Batman Begins. Was Tom Wilkinson? He did a great job as Falcone. And just here it's just
definitely a character that's evolved over time.
100%.
It's just a stereotypical mobster in this.
But this really does the first time establishing him as well. I mean, because when you see how they used to do gangsters in these comics, I would probably say before that, I mean, probably Rupert Thorne would probably be the best adaptation of what they're going for here.
Yes.
But having more of the family aspect, the traditional, Italian mob, Cosa Nostra, kind of that, having that aspect, you really didn't really see that in the comics.
Yeah, fair. I'm with Drew to an extent. I hate the whole like, oh, we're gonna be in like the the bath, the sauna, all that stuff.
No.
But I think though, I mean, really, the only point they serve here is to show that the Commissioner Loeb is in with the mob, and it's like, oh, look, here you go, we're feeding it to you. But other than that, they don't play a huge role at all, except for this teases stuff for future stories. But not a lot to take in here, but it's here, it's relevant for what we know will eventually come in the Batman lore. But yeah, the reveal that Loeb and is in with the Falcone crime family, and just kind of we're really seeing how these connections and ties work, leads to one of my favorite scenes. And it's this panel where they're all having a dinner, and then Bruce breaks in, or Batman breaks in, and this is where he kind of sets his mission of like, I'm starting a war on crime, and I'm gonna not end, but I'm gonna stop every single one of you guys. But he just says, "Ladies and gentlemen, you have eaten well," and I'm like, if there's a moment where we're like, "Oh yeah, get him!"
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
run,
that's the
bitch!
mic drop. Yeah, that's the mic drop for
So,
sure.
I don't know.
And then we learned later on through Kevin Smith that Batman pissed himself. Isn't that great?
Yeah, well, why?
Thanks, Kevin.
Why?
Yeah.
Shut up. Hold on. I need to do something real quick. And oh, there we go. Perfect. Just kidding.
You son
Just
of a.
kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's a single panel that I usually think of from this book, it is this panel, because I'm like, this is Batman. If you had to show a picture to be like, what does Batman represent? It's like this, like in the shadows, totally gonna like just mess everything up and go from there. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk about this scene. I love when the lady is like, I think it's Falcone's wife, correct? That's like, oh, have you seen the Batman? Like, I hear he's massive. So,
Yeah, I know. I
again,
just like that little thing where he's like cutting the power, and like, you know, he has it all planned out, and you know, like, I like to think that, you know, on his way over here, he has rehearsed the line, "Gentlemen, you have eaten well," like 5 different ways, and you know.
Have you seen the what's the College Humor where he's like trying to find his voice?
Yes,
Batman, yeah. But yeah, good stuff. From here, we do then kind of lead into, you know, we had the setup of, you know, the GCPD are but aren't really looking for Batman. They do and they don't want to stop him.
Oh, the setups! I love the setups. They're planning for him. He doesn't buy them. I love it.
Oh yeah, but you get this incident where you know there is crime going on. Gordon jumps into action. Batman jumps into action. Batman saves people, but the cops now have to go after him, and we get this kind of whole like rundown, the showdown that takes place, and it ultimately really does turn Batman into an opposition for the GCPD, because he has to protect himself and defend himself, and that unfortunately means he's taking the cops out. So Jim, any thoughts on this scene and kind of what it does and what it leads to?
I mean, it definitely shows that the cops are insane, that they're going to do whatever and just go after them. But, you know, and it also, I mean, it shows Batman, again, he kind of gets beat up at points and goes, but it does show the length at points that they'll go with, but also just how corrupt it is. I mean, it's an extended scene too, as you go through it. But, and then there's the cat. That's kind of the funny deal. And some of the things going, I liked it. It just ends up, again, you kind of have gotten to this point where something's got to give, and Batman's going to have to, you know, fight back. And it shows you that war, that they're now like serious. They're really going to take it. Also, they don't care the idea of some, you know, wino dying and things. They are just really bad. And basically that, and they're just blowing up buildings and it's like just to get him now.
Yeah,
so
they're a hit
apparently
squad.
that was kind of based on a true event. What happened, I guess, in Philadelphia. I think
it was the move. It was the move incident that happened where they firebombed the whole deal with that. The move. It was a big thing when I was a kid. Yeah, it's bad. It was really bad.
Yeah, and apparently I think that scene with the helicopter when it drops, I think that may have actually been taken from footage of the helicopter.
Yeah, and it was Mayor Good in Philadelphia, and that like it stained his whole deal, and they everything was on fire, kids and stuff. It was really bad.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, I will say we do kind of get to see Batman's progression here as well, because we've had 2 instances of Bruce going out and kind of having to learn, and he's still learning here, but you see him getting more efficient and more effective. And maybe it was just that forced nature of like, all right, at this point, my life is on the line. I have to. But this was, I think, the big like bombastic moment that we had, and I personally I liked it. Good stuff. But yeah, Drew, is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
No, one of my favorite parts, is just like I love Frank's machismo, just how he opens each book. Like I love the opening of part 3, how he says they've got him cornered, they've got him outnumbered, they've got him trapped, they're in trouble.
They're in trouble.
I love it.
And then this is the this is where kind of what you were mentioning earlier, Jim, where like it catches the attention of the city. I mean, clearly you got a building blowing up. Yeah. But this is where Holly's like, oh my God, it's Batman. They're going to get him. And then she's kind of like, she drags Selena out of bed and they go and.
Oh yeah. She's all
like,
fired up. Like that's entertainment for her, but it does go that overall deal. And it's a little less, it's a little more subtle than say Watchmen with the overall news coverage and things. But there's a bunch of times. I mean, even the idea where Loeb at some point says, yeah, we want to do something about Gordon, but the press likes him, the press. And then with Batman and this, they start liking Batman and Holly getting excited. It's big news. Everybody's covering it and things like that. And people are excited about it. And that seems to piss the police and the authorities even more often. There's that big play of still having to play that game with things like that, which I did really like.
Agreed. So yeah, this kind of creates some big changes within Gotham, within Batman, how he's viewed. But really kind of
sorry, real quick. The other thing about that was like it was the upping of the stakes with Batman. We get to see just how resourceful and resilient he is when he has like no gadgets, nothing. He's outnumbered, outmanned, and he's got to rely upon his wits to survive. And we see how capable he is.
Yeah,
even when he's injured.
Another moment that they lifted for Batman Begins with the bats coming in and creating the distraction for him to escape, which honestly is a cool moment, and I thought they did relatively well for film. I feel like that's one of the things you could mess up easily.
Yeah,
and they made it work in both cases.
Yeah. Oh, I stood up and openly cheered when I saw that in the theater because I was like, "Are they gonna? They did it! They did it!"
Yeah, he pulls it from his boot. It's like, oh, there it is. He's gonna do it.
Yeah,
it doesn't look bad. It looks cool.
that was the big thing. It didn't look bad. I mean, granted, it was a different time, so we were. I think CGI and effects were honestly better in the mid to late 2000s.
I agree. It's way overutilized at this point.
Yeah,
like pretty much. And if they say they're doing a superhero film, we're like, oh, so it's basically an animated movie. So much so what was that? They have that footage in when they were doing the Hobbit trilogy of like Ian McKellen just like crying in a green screen room, just going like, "There's nothing's real. I don't want to do this."
Fair.
I feel bad.
Real quick, just gonna say hello to B.A. Turner, who's coming in, who also has a comic out, Vigilantes Creed. Make sure you go check that out. And we have Zax coming in with 5 gifted memberships to Pop by Culture. Thank you, sir. You know what, Zax? Because I'm running out of clips. This you have to get this, and I'm gonna apologize. I'm sorry.
Max, I just gifted you a ice cream super sticker.
Ice cream, yum.
You're gonna need some more clips soon,
bro.
Gosh.
Tonight's been wild. So thank you everyone watching for the support. By the way, we've got 54 people watching between X and YouTube. If you're on the X side, which a majority of you are, come over, hit the like button, and share, subscribe, become a member if you want. I won't mind. But one of the things that we really start to see is the stakes get more real for Batman, but the stakes also start becoming more real for Gordon. We really see him starting to get beat down, and he's been this just ever-present sense of good, and we see him falter, not in a way in terms of crime, but in just a human way. He really kind of gets caught up with work, and then he finds some reprieve and some freshness in Sarah Essen, who he's working with. He enjoys working with her. They get along really well. Things aren't great at home because his wife, which we see is not happy with his hours. She's not happy with how devoted he is to work. She's not fat, Boosh. She's pregnant. Freaking Boosh. Boosh comes in and goes, she fat.
I mean, two things can be true at once.
I mean, fair. But yeah, he has like a moment of weakness, and he and Sarah Essen kiss, and then he's just kind of sitting here with this weight of what he needs to do because he's in a rock and a hard spot. One, emotionally with the Sarah Essen and his wife thing, because he knows it's wrong. And he's got these lines here of, I need to tell her, I need to wake her up and have a conversation with her, but he clearly doesn't want to. And also the shame of like, I'm leading down a path of cheating on my pregnant wife. But then he's got the city aspect, his job aspect of, you know, he's already at opposition with the GCPD, but now he's like really thinking through Batman, and he's really kind of looking at this and getting that Harvey Dent mentality of, yeah, it's not right that we have a vigilante and like it's illegal for a reason, but he's actually doing good. Like this is a good guy, and I'm working for an organization that is not good, and I'm trying to change it, but I've got to have help. Like, and you can see he's just torn. Like this city, the seediness, the corruption, everything about it is just really bearing down on him. And I loved just getting to see this moment of vulnerability because it's something that we don't always get to see. Or if we do see it in comics, it's way overwritten. Like you don't get this image with some dialogue, you get pages of it. And it's like, all right, well, that ruined it. So I don't know if I was the only one that felt like this was a great moment. I love the black and then just him on the bed with his wife.
Yeah, it ends up being a human moment, like you said. And you know, you want to root for Jim, but he's really doing a piece of shit thing. But you end up like you kind of go through that process with him, and at the end he ends up doing the right thing. But yeah, even at a point where he's like, you know, before Barbara even gets there and he's deciding, should we have a kid in Gotham? And hey, I hope it's a boy, and these things going on. And it just ends up. And again, this is something Zdarsky kind of stole in the current run that he just ended. And that was almost comical. This actually feels like a real situation, and him really trying not to do the wrong thing, but almost end up doing it anyway. And and he does stop it. And with that, though, he feels bad. You feel like he's kind of a piece of crap, but he does make good. But it feels realistic, like the rest of it.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's jealous. He's jealous of how easy and everything is going to Batman. And like you see, Jim has sacrificed all this going on. He's got all this going on. That Batman did this, Batman did that, Batman did this, and it's just like it's just not fair for him right now.
Yeah. We do need to talk about those bed sheets though, because that's choices were made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that is some late 70s, early 80s shit right there, though.
Yeah, that's one big difference from that. So you're looking at the recoloring. If you look at the original edition, which I got here, it's just plain like light blue bed sheets. If you look at it, that's it.
Yeah, that's better. I pull these images from my digital copies, so of course they're always going to have the updated ones. But yeah, we did kind of touch on this, but you know, Gordon and Essen really start becoming a thing, and I mean, I think it's a lot for Gordon. I like the fact that he's not just perfect; he is flawed to a degree, and not to say that loving someone is wrong. Like you can you know love someone. It's just the circumstance of him discovering this and how he acts on it. Maybe isn't not maybe. It's just not best. It's poor.
Well, you know what? Hey, it's bound to happen in workplace environments. If you're around someone of the opposite sex at work and you're spending a lot of time at work, and you guys get along, you'll find like you'll set up like jokingly, like I'll have coworkers say like, "Oh yeah, he's my office husband."
Oh yeah,
I'm his office wife.
Listen, when I had my corporate job, I was an office whore. Okay, I had like 7 work wives.
Yeah,
7.
Hey, it happens and stuff like this. It's believable.
I mean, we never made out or anything, clearly, because reasons. But but no, I like this. It adds an element to the story. But I mentioned this backstage. Like, this does a lot for future stories as well. You know, one concerning Gordon and his wife. Whether you like the James Jr. character and how that turns, like you have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, things there, but also when you look to No Man's Land.
I was just gonna say No Man's Land. I was like, that becomes.
it definitely comes full circle in some ways there, which I won't reveal because I'm sure we'll probably cover that at some point.
Well, I would say moving forward though, like I do like this dynamic. You know, it's because it is it just like you know, you guys said it's organic. You know, it's not something that anybody asks for. Sometimes, you know, the heart wants what the heart wants.
Right.
And
I think the big thing here though is this ultimately ends up becoming leverage that Loeb, you know, uses against Gordon. So and look, I'll say this is another testament to Miller as a writer. You could have easily just had, you know, they've got a fling going on and Loeb's going to use it as leverage, but we didn't keep it that surface level. They brought the character, they brought the actual emotion and the weight of this into it for Gordon. And then you get the other gut punch of like Loeb's like, all right, so your wife can find out, or you can kind of like go with the flow. So that for me worked well. Next up, we have, and Jim, I'm going to come to you because you're talking about specifically. You had we talked about the panels of Batman on the police board, and you're like, soon it's going to become Joker and everything else. This idea that the presence of Batman inspires others, and this is our first example of it. Selena Kyle creates a catsuit and starts burglarizing things, and then people believe that she's in with the Batman.
That's the best, that she gets upset, and the thing is, she's upset when she shouldn't be. It's almost like just for being upset sake, because she even says at one point, like, man, they think that it was the Batman, and Holly goes, isn't that good? Like, I thought that's what we want. That's what you want. No, it's not good. And then, it's like a sidekick. I'm no sidekick. Gets so upset to get to the point where she starts escalating stuff. And it's like, I'm gonna slice that guy's face. I'm gonna scratch him up. You're like, geez, Selena, you're going. But she ends up like getting it right. Now, again, the idea, even what Sammy was saying, like this progression though of her, you know, hooker, and then decides, okay, Batman, I'm gonna get a custom on, and then go. It almost, you know, you have to suspend disbelief of the idea that now all of a sudden she's this great cat burglar, because she is going to steal things. But I still like it enough, but it just made me laugh that everybody's jealous of Batman. They're so jealous. And then there's Bruce thinks he's not even doing that great. And they're like, oh my God, it's, you know, I not the Batman's deal, and I'm going to show them. And she realizes one of the real subtle things, I think, is you realize that people, like, they know that Batman's good, because she ends up saying, the way that she's going to make the people realize that she isn't with the Batman is she's going to do some messed up stuff. Like she's going to slice a guy, or she's going to go, and she says, I'm going to show him it's not Batman, because, you know, the way he's being portrayed is a little bit better. And there isn't a lot to, like, they could lie or whatever, but Batman is out there doing things, but you don't have a body count. You don't have things like that. But she's just so mad that she's being connected with them. But again, that's kind of a wink because they are so connected, and you see that in this. I liked
the other two things I kind of like about, because again, her character as Catwoman really doesn't play a large role. Like it's not really there, but what it does show is a different type of crime than what we've been seeing. But also I love her progression of stealing things. Like she starts with Loeb and gets all this stuff. And I love Holly's line where she's like, this is junk. It doesn't even work. It's all it's collectibles. It has value, but to them it's not valuable. So then she decides to go after the Roman. And again, you get this tease here of this play into like what's to come in the future. You know, so
and she's not doing it a smart way either. She's doing this like revenge. She's doing it to mess with people, and it could end up being bad eventually. You know, she gets smart enough about it, but even then, like, she doesn't even know what she's going to go. You don't have the Catwoman that, you know, plans it out and says, okay, they're gonna have this, this, and this. When they go and go to get Loeb, she then says, this is bullcrap. This is pop culture bullcrap. And then I like Holly's like just in the background playing around with stuff, and then I got it to work. And Selena's not paying any attention. Look, I got it to work. I got it to work. She's like, stop it. But yeah, she's doing it to do it. She's doing it because of the thrill, and she's doing it to mess with people in this play. She's not really doing it as she would later, where she's, gonna get some things and all that stuff combined. This is just her going out to just cause problems.
Yeah, just almost out of spite.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Batman being tagged with Batman, that makes it elevates it more. But again, that shows that elevation of what Batman ends up bringing to the city, even in a way that's not exactly, the Joker who fights against him. This is somebody who's not really, Josh, you said it, not really integral to the story that much, but ends up showing because of it. Now she has to do this more, and she's going to do this, and even getting in the costume, she gets inspired by it. And Holly just thinks that she's like crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about?
What are you doing?
Yeah,
I will say this scene, because Batman's already kind of starting to look into the Roman Falcone, but this scene kind of forces his hand to get involved, and he does, and that kind of leads to what becomes the climax of the book. Is that the Roman kind of is like, I'm done with this. Like it's a thorn in my paw. Like end this now. So Loeb and Falcone kind of figure out, all right, we're gonna go and we're gonna start with Gordon and take him out, and then we'll deal with the Batman later. But this is what leads us to our climax is, Gordon's coming home, and the plan is to take his wife and kid and, hey, leverage. So Drew, what did you think about the setup for the climax and where this book kind of goes towards the end?
Another instance where it raises the stakes. The stakes this time it gets personal, and I do like that personal stake with this, and I do enjoy the line Bruce says, "Don't wear the costume, never during the day," and we got to see that again during the Dark Knight. I like to see that never during the day. I'm like, okay, that's awesome, and I got a kick out of seeing Bruce Wayne ride the Schwinn bike trying to keep up. During the car chase, I'm like, that's one strong Schwinn he's riding. Holy crap! But yeah, I did get a kick out of this, did like this, and I do love the end after, spoiler alert, rescues the child, and you got the meet between Jim and Bruce, Batman. He's like, yeah, I can't make you out without my glasses. You must have some armor on there in that jacket. I did enjoy that little chat that they have.
Yeah. It's that nice kind of like cheeky nature too of like, is Gordon really saying he can't figure out who it is, or does he know? And it's something that for like so long they played with so incredibly well. And I would say yes, that he does know, like at least to a point that there's a little bit of doubt, but he's pretty certain of who Batman is and that this is Bruce Wayne sitting in front of him. Because I always think to No Man's Land when Bruce is like, no, I'm going to be honest and tell you I am, and it takes his cowl off, and Gordon's like, no, put it back on. I do not want to see you. For a number of reasons. But yeah, I love this exchange, and I love that it's honestly Bruce and not Batman that is the present saving the day, because it's it goes back to who's really who. And yes, I think Batman at the core is who Bruce really is, but that's kind of why I like seeing Bruce just jump in the action. And also, like, there could be other people, but he's like, this is what's right, I'm doing it. So he goes for the kid. So Jim, did you want to add anything to the climax of the book?
No, I like that scene. And like you said, I love the idea when you don't come full out and say, like, the idea, I don't have my glasses on. Like, you kind of get the deal. But even going with it, it does show, these guys going after a baby and, a new mother. Like, it's pretty scumbaggy. And, and at one point, Gordon even stopped him. Like, he has to pretty much make sure a thing crashes that his baby's in. He's trying to stop this deal, and it's so big. And then when he does this again, it just shows again how great Batman is. And that Schwinn, it did make me laugh when Drew brought it up. I'm like, look at him go. That deal. And but yeah, when he sees him, you kind of get the idea. But I like it better that way. I like where you kind of have does he or doesn't he, and you kind of think, and even when you play it now, like, Gordon's a pretty good investigator. Like, he has to figure it out. But I like that idea of like, listen, I kind of know who you are, but I'm not going to say it out loud. Don't show me. We'll kind of wink or whatever. But you know, it gives you like that cool thing of like they trust each other so much that they don't have to say it. But again, there's so many different reasons and stuff like that for it. But I do like it. But it was great. I mean, seeing Bruce just dive in. At one point, I didn't get the deal. And I'm like, oh no, like that baby, because he's just like there on the bottom with a huge Bruce there, like barreling down on them. I'm like, oh no, this baby. But yeah, it was a really good scene.
Bruce is gonna torpedo the baby.
I'm like, holy moly, what is he gonna do? And then when you know the future of Jim Gordon Jr., then you're like, you know, maybe it would have been better the other way. But he's a baby at this point.
I do think this is another moment of great color too. That middle panel with Jim, just know, and it's that red, that terror.
Yeah.
Now, Drew, I want to circle back to you because you mentioned how capable Jim was at the beginning. Is this kind of final scene? Is that where you're like, oh, he doesn't really have the same chutzpah?
Yeah, I would say that kind of, but it's yeah, you would think he would show it here, but at the same time, you have to kind of understand, like, okay, he's in father mode and protective mode, so he may not bring out the full Rambo at this point as he would have earlier. I think too, when it's your own family, you almost side more to panic when it's in the moment. Like, I think you get so blinded by, oh God, please don't do anything, versus like, I'm gonna take action. Because it's that thing of like, if something happens to me, something happens to me, and that's on me. But if my actions cause my wife or my kid to get killed, then I'm gonna you know, white flag a little bit and hold back some of what I would like to do, I guess.
Yeah, I have 5 kids, so I'm like, well, you know, one less, you know, it would take me a little. I got to go through the math. I'm like, okay, that's less on the bills coming in. All right, I better do something. It would end up me being like, yeah, my wife will kill me if I don't do this, dive in and whatnot. But yeah, you know, you do the math.
Yeah. Sammy, anything that you want to add to this final little climax?
No, you guys nailed it. I think they tried to do it again, you know, less effective in The Dark Knight, but you know, there's so much more gravity here, especially because, you know, you get to see the child falling, you get to see, you know, Jim Gordon's absolute anguish, and then, you know, you see Batman doing what Batman does. You know, I mean, there's no fat on this. Like, you know, this is how it should taste. This is how it should look. I'm glad that, you know, a lot of these movies wanted to start, you know, paying homage to works like this. But I mean, there's a reason that this work has stood the test of time, is because it really is storytelling in panels like this. You know, you just said, you know, you said it earlier. It was like, guys, it's only 4 issues. You know, like this is incredible.
Yeah. But what's funny is that in the Absolute edition I have, when it has the original newsprint in it, they put in the original letters, the letter columns to the staff, and you'd be surprised how many people were not fans of this.
Wow.
Oh, just because it was a baby, or
not just this, but the overall story.
Just the story.
Yeah, the story itself. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I think anytime we have something that feels like a change, we're usually like very like, oh, I don't know.
Well, that's why I always tell people. Oops, sorry.
No, you go soon.
You know, like during crisis events or anything, you know, or all new, all different, where they're, oh, this is terrible, and it was like, give 5 years. Like, everything will eventually make its way back to the status quo. That's just how comics do things. If something takes off really well, it'll stick around. If not, it'll get retconned out. That's just how it is. I thought this.
Give it 5 years. We'll have another reboot. It'll be fine.
Yep, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Well,
I was going to ask Drew just the idea, were some people upset just because, like, oh, we don't need to see this, you know, it's or was it more the change that people were upset about?
I think it was the change, and just crazy about some of the actions, and people had high expectations in part 1. I guess part 1, it didn't meet a lot of expectations for some people.
That's crazy, because we spent almost the whole night. It was so good. It was so good.
I mean, this other stuff just kind of moved. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not good. It's just less dense. That first issue, there's so much character and narrative that's there that just,
and I mean, maybe the thing is, I did say for me personally, reading through it, the whole 4 issues, and then reading it again, I started liking it more. And each time, and again, even like Sammy said, that kind of time frame there. And once you get the whole story, and then you go back again, it just ends up things really start clicking and really fit with it. Now there are some tough things. I mean, Catwoman, the hooker, Gordon doing that to his pregnant wife, but that it ends up being like realistic. It is like a real story. And it makes them real characters instead of characters.
Not this old man who's always kind of shows up, and you regard him as to be, and he proves himself to be like this bastion of justice, where he is the only uncrooked cop in this entire city, and it nearly killed him. It drove him nuts,
and he can stick up for that, but he can't stop from cheating on his wife pretty much.
Well, the one person who isn't treating him like shit happens to be this beautiful woman that he sees every day.
Exactly.
It humanizes him. It's great writing.
And my wife was pregnant 5 times. And at points you're not getting it. I mean, this is the point where you are vulnerable in that of like, that deal. Now, thank God I didn't go that route, but you can see that it could be, and these long hours and things.
No, women don't understand it. It was like, there are times
your wife is standing next to you with a frying pan.
Yeah,
right
really.
now.
I'm like,
I've explained this to my wife so many times. There's been times where like a woman just out in public like paid me a compliment, and like 5 years later I was like, oh, it's a good day. Like, it's I
tell my wife, like, the idea of women being friendly, most guys will take that as something different. It's not just, that was a nice person. It's, oh man, they're hot for me or whatever. Not that Gordon did that, but the idea where it does look like he's getting the crap kicked out of him. He's having a really bad time. And then he's late going home, and his wife actually, giving him a little bit of crap at the one point, but it just ends up all coming together and he doesn't quite go as far as they might have taken it. And he realizes, and once they use that and he does the right thing and really cuts the whole deal with Loeb off by saying, listen, and it's a great scene because it's when they leave the mansion. And it was weird that she was there, but the idea when he leaves the mansion and then Bruce is like, look, and they still out there? I've been out there for like 20 minutes. What are they doing? And he's explaining to her everything that happened. And it's done in, like, this book does a lot of things that you don't see, but you can imagine. And that imagining of, oh my God, she's going to flip out. What's going to happen? That gives you like almost like a cliffhanger of the next, is she going to be moving out and whatnot? And it seems like they worked it out and makes it, to me, it makes it stronger that way.
Agreed.
My biggest gripe ever out of all the lore that they established, there's so is Barbara Gordon, is she a junior? Because she's named after her mother. Like, does that work on the female end?
So originally Barbara was just their niece.
Yeah.
And it eventually changed, I think, after this.
But Sammy's saying this. I've never met a girl who's like, oh, well, I'm Francine's, Soiree the third. I'm actually
my mother and her mother before her.
I'm telling you, I used to get confused of a second versus a junior as well, because it's the idea of timing. But I've never met a girl who's like, oh, I'm Sammy Junior.
See, that's I'm the third. That's where the three-peat comes from.
Yeah, I'm the third as well.
Yeah, so I always it would always bug me, and I know the establishment of that, but I was just like, it just felt like a huge oversight. It was like, oh, you're gonna name the
and like Josh said, the weird thing was the niece deal at that point. It gets a little wonky, and I do like the daughter a lot better than the niece.
The daughter makes more sense.
Yeah, it really does.
No,
especially with her, eventually becoming Batgirl.
Yeah, because even in the '60s show, she was the niece, right?
I believe so. Yeah. And then she was working at the library.
Yep.
She's also hot, but that's just
we do end up wrapping up And again, it's so fast and efficient, because I feel like if you say fast, it feels like you get cheated out of something, and I don't feel like we really get cheated out of anything here. Everything here feels like, hey, like if you loved this, if you thought this was exciting, just wait, because there's so much more like waiting in the wings. And we get all that here. We get kind of the character beats, and a little bit about Falcone, a little bit about their marriage counseling, and he mentions Sarah going to New York. He's got a line about Falcone's daughter, whoever it is, which is a nod to the Long Halloween. And then there's this guy calls himself the Joker, and it's just like, yeah, dum dum dum.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff. I love the way this ended. I thought it was kind of like the perfect ending. And again, the reason I say this is more of a Jim Gordon story than Bruce is you start with Jim and you end with Jim. So yeah.
But not just that, he's found a friend. He's learned he can't do this on his own. He's found a friend. You see him with a smile here.
Yeah. The fact that he's got, like, I've got someone who can help. I've got a friend. Yeah. Coming who might be able to help. It's that kind of, we know, like, okay, we're going to start getting these classic team ups. And honestly, this is the era of Batman that I love, when they're both street level and just doing their thing.
And the funny thing is about it is, in my mind, thinking about the idea, you usually do think that Gordon's there as a help to Batman. Like, Batman's lucky to have Gordon because that's the inside in, but you even see here that Gordon's also lucky to have Batman because of how bad it is and things like that. And you don't usually kind of get that feel.
Agreed. As we wrap up, I know we didn't really do a slide specifically for Mazzucchelli, but I always find it interesting when we talk about his art, because there are a lot of people that are like, it looks all right. And I get what they're saying. They're wanting the pretty images. I get it. But I would say, and I do think this is Mazzucchelli's best work, the amount of storytelling this guy's able to do. Like, his cities feel lived in. Whatever rooms they're in, they feel like they're actual rooms. I just love the way he can tell stories with his panels. And it's one of those things, again, that we don't see a lot of, because either writers are too arrogant or they don't trust their artists enough to let them tell the story. So you get so much exposition these days. And these guys are like, hey, this is a visual medium. How can we tell the story visually? And it's like the conversation is there and ever present on every single page of this book. So I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in on that, but
I agree. And it's something that drives me nuts now. Like, say a Tom King, who gets some of the greatest artists and then just doesn't let them do anything and just will overdo it. Now, in that, I'm more of a story over art guy, and this has been something that's been coming up on the Aficionado show a lot too, of would you go with a bad story with great art, great story, but the art that I do like the most is the storytelling art, an art that ends up and being able to combine with it. Because when you get done this, I don't sit there and say like, oh my God, like if you said, what do you like better, the art or the story? And it's like, I can we have both? Because it feels like it's such a congruent thing that it does it so well that you there's not a point where I'm thrown out thinking, well, why didn't they show that? Or even in a story that does have a lot of off-panel stuff, but when you're on there, it really does, like you said, it really pushes the story and the colors and the art and the grittiness and all that, makes it that much better. And so, I like storytelling art and writers and artists that work together in that way more than just pretty pictures. You can get a lot of pretty pictures a lot of times, and sometimes it just doesn't tell the story and ends up throwing you out and things like that.
Now, Drew, I'll let you speak to this, but Mazzucchelli was originally not going to be doing the art for this book.
That's true. It's going to be Trevor Von Eden. And look, Trevor Von Eden is an incredibly talented artist in his own right, a great artist, but it would have been clearly very different. Yeah. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't think the story would be as well revered if Trevor had done the art. That's my opinion.
That's fair.
I think David was the right guy at the right time for this project. He had already proven himself on Daredevil, and sounded like he really had to be convinced to do this, which is pretty crazy. But he Frank asked him to do it. He said, "Yeah, okay, sure," and he did it, and he knocked it out of the park. And and early on, I brought it up when I was younger. This really wasn't a favorite of mine. I thought it was okay, but as I've gotten older, this has become not only my favorite Batman story, but probably my favorite, one of my all-time favorite comic book stories ever.
Yeah.
And I think it is honestly a near perfect comic book story. And this is the one story I tell anyone and everyone to read. If there's one Batman story they ask for me to have them read, it's this. I tell them this is the best place to start. You ever?
In general too, like I think this is a great story for people that have maybe never read comics and are interested in picking up comics, because it lays so much of a foundation, but it also like you don't need prior knowledge coming in. And yeah, if you have prior knowledge, it helps kind of pinpoint little like nods and winks, but
it's so cinematic. The way Frank lays out the pages, it's all cinematic.
Yeah, agreed. We'll go ahead and go into our final thoughts. As always, I'd love to get a rating from you guys, like, 1 something out of 10, 10 being best thing ever, 1 being, the most wateriest poop you've ever had. I will say, like Drew, I love this book. We kind of had this as a Bible required reading at Batman News for very specific reasons. I think we had like 5 or 6 other titles that were kind of like, hey, you need to read this for what we felt presented a good foundation of what Batman is and should represent. And, I like it. The reason this stands the test of time, and the reason that DC continues to re-release it and do a new version and everything else, is because it's a good book. And I think that, the efficiency of it, if you really want something that's deconstructed, because that's the big thing for today, may not be the best thing for you. But if you're looking for a foundation for Gotham City, for Batman, for Gordon, for crime, for the GCPD, it's all here. And it sets up and teases so many other stories that, like we call it year 1, but you could call it book 1 or chapter 1. It just works. So for me, I would give this probably a 9.5 out of 10. Sammy, what are your final thoughts on Batman Year 1?
Yeah, a 9.5. I give this a 9.5. It's tough to rate something like this because it's timeless, right? It's the only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because there are certain things that I would rather read, but I also think I enjoy those things that I would rather read having read this. It brings context to things. It's just I thought it was really interesting what you said about like Van Eden, where I think even though yes, he's a brilliant artist as well, it would have almost been too cartoony. There's certain things that are a little bit more like rudimentary in the background, where it gives you almost like this timeless feel, and yes, it leaves the door wide open for all these things. Like I no, don't get me wrong, I didn't see what he was going to bring to the table, but I was like, it captures this certain feel that does make it a timeless classic, and I think everybody should read it. Like you said, whether you're heavily familiar with the comics or not, I was like, this is a great taking off point. And I just wish no, that's actually what I said at the very beginning is when you have that moment with Gordon on the rooftop at the end, it makes you excited for what's to come, where it was like, I don't want to see Batman fight the Joker. I want to see this Batman fight the Joker. It was like, because it feels earned now. It's not it's not insane. There are a couple of things that are very Frank Miller that are but all in all, it is just a powerhouse of a piece, and it's brilliant. It really is.
Agreed. Jim, what are your final thoughts, sir?
I loved it. And I'll go a little higher than you guys. I'm going to go 9.7. But what I do like about the deal and what you said, Josh, about the idea of, Batman news and things like that, I would think that some of that is like, hey, you schmuck, like, this is good. Like, don't give everything a 10 because this is the good thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it drives me nuts every week when I end up reviewing things and now you're too negative, all these things. And then I look and a random Harley issue gets a 10.
10 out of
It's
10.
a perfect comic.
Oh
And when you actually read stuff that is that, and even us saying that we're not, Drew said a 10, and I can see why. I'm going a little lower just because some of the different things and whatnot. But the idea that this is one of the best things written, you can't give those scores out all the time. Like, this is the pinnacle, and you're giving just random things. And I think that, again, a lot of these, and they'll try to, well, that's different than this or whatever. And it just drives me nuts. But it's so good. And it does get you pumped up. And it also gives you more character work in 4 issues than you get in some runs. And that's crazy. The idea of how much you get in that first issue, in that first scene. I mean, when they're just going into Gotham that different way, it gives you more character work than a lot of runs. And it just shows you that it is sad sometimes going back and reading some of this and realizing how bad things are at this moment at DC, and things, ebb and flow, but just the storytelling, I think that people have lost track of doing that comic book storytelling. I don't think there's really editors or writers in a majority know what that is anymore. And you see it when you see it, it's like one of those things like, oh crap, that's it. Like, why is it so easy here? It seems almost just too easy the way he does it, and just people can't do it anymore. But I loved it.
Yeah. I just wanted to take just a quick second because you talked about just people not understanding story. And I mentioned there were comics we had to read when we started. The other 2 things we had to read, which one is kind of a comic, but it's understanding comics. Like Andrew made that required reading so we could understand the structure of comics, at least have an idea. But the other thing we had to read is a book called Story by Robert McKee, and it breaks down storytelling and why you approach stories in certain ways and the importance of it. And it's like, that book I want to just go give to so many modern day writers and be like, you need to read this because you can't tell a story to save your life.
And what sucks is the idea that you're reviewing the comics and you're reading that, and you can tell that the people writing them don't even care enough to even check anything. It's infuriating sometimes, at the idea of how much more you're invested in recognizing things than they are to even put it out there. I will also disagree with you though, because seeing Punchline as a hot tub streamer in Gotham City Sirens changed my life. So that the himbos and I'm telling you, what changed my life is the idea that there was an old West town in the outskirts of Gotham. Like, where did this pop up from? But I will tell you that when we reviewed it, I brought your name up a couple times because that really gave me the Ann Nocenti Catwoman feels at points of just how ridiculously bad it was. And that's how me and you kind of met, talking about, because again, talking about reviews, talking about reviews, you'd have 10, 8, say, 2, 1.5. Me and you every month. I'm like, there he is again. And finally, I just reached out to you. I'm like, pretty bad, right? And you're like, oh, it's so bad.
And I'm like, oh, thank God.
It was just like us versus everybody else, but it was so ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's worse now. Like, I've gotten out of it. Like, it's really bad now. The idea of what reviewers think is good or what they're trying to push. You can tell that they're just getting it for review copies, or the sites just tell them we want you to do positive spin, and they try. But when you do that, you can tell, if you do follow these reviewers, every review starts to almost feel like it's a form. They have that same not style, same wordage of everything, because they don't really mean it. So it ends up being this like generic review. And Judge, me and you said we took some time doing the reviews. It's a pain in the ass sometimes,
Yeah.
especially if you have a couple books and you want to really, take some time and care about what you're doing. And I don't see that anymore. It's
Nope,
sad.
not at all.
Yeah.
Drew, we'll wrap things up with you. Are you going to pull a Rockin' Robbie and say a whole lot of things that mean nothing, or
Says poignant and nuanced.
Yeah.
No, I so like I said, it's a near perfect comic. You know, it does have a couple flaws, but I'm going to give it a 9.75. There we go.
He just wants to be more positive than me.
You bastards, we grade on a 0.5.
I'm 9.8.
Stop fucking with my system. No, I'm kidding.
Like the Price is Right.
Yeah, $1, got it. But there's so I talked about the letters previously, and famously in the last issue, a certain famous artist submitted a letter that got printed. It was from Alex Toth. Alex Toth, and he loved this series. He loved what they did. And the old curmudgeon himself said this was fantastic what you guys had done. He enjoyed it. It's like, okay, clearly if Frank and David did this, and Alex is saying they did a great job, they're on to something.
Yeah.
So I let Alex, that's the law talking, and he enjoyed it. So that's a great sign. And another little fun fact: in issue 4, when you see that Skeevers guy in his apartment, there's a stone sculpture behind him. That was a little call out to Frank Frazetta. That's the Conan statue
that's cool.
from the first Conan novel. So yeah, but I like I said, I revisit this every year, and a close second for me is Batman Prey by Doug Monaco and Paul Gulacy.
Yep.
But this is by far to me the best Batman story ever written, and I will always be recommending this to people.
Heck yeah. We are going to call it a night. Real quick before we go, if people want to find you guys, because you all have your own things that you're doing, where can they find you and what can they expect? Sammy, I'll start with you. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on YouTube, and I'm juggling a couple of other ideas right now, but I have a news channel or a news show that comes out every Sunday where I get people who are in pop culture and or video games, some form of commentary, and then I throw all that shit out the window and then talk about stupid things that have happened in the news, just as a way to decompress. And what are you going to say? It's a Sunday night show. What am I going to say that everyone else hasn't said all week? But my flagship show just started, and that's called Cavecast. I'm taking a very academic approach to give normies or people who aren't familiar with Batman lore, a good place to start off. So, we're taking it piece by piece. I mean, the first episode was last week. We did Gotham and just set up different scenes, that's been the hardest part about just keeping me from going full-blown schizophrenic, because everything just bleeds into obviously we have to talk about this or this or this. Was like, no, stay on the subject, because each one of those subjects is going to get their own time in the sun. So this weekend will be calling the episode A Study in Duality, and that will be basically just Bruce Wayne, Batman. It was like we're really that. I think episode 3 is going to be The Cave. We are taking a very academic approach. I'm very happy with it. I'm very excited about different people who are telling me that they want to jump on panels. And so I've been pretty blessed. I've reached out to a couple of different creators, and I'm shocked at some of the responses that I'm getting. So I implore you to check it out. It's every Saturday morning, 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. And but you don't always have to be there. Catch it on the rewatch. I just did it because that's good for my schedule. And when I think Batman, I think about
Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
nice,
awesome, dude. Yeah, go give Sammy a follow, subscribe, and check out Capecast. And Jim, where can people find you? I mean, you post, you do stuff every now and then, right?
Yeah, now and then. We have our YouTube channel, Weird Science Comics. We have a Marvel weekly podcast. We have a DC weekly podcast, just to mention that nobody's really known. But the guy that I've done it with, we've done it for 10 years now, and we have not missed a week. But he decided to quit this week. He is quitting. And he ended up at one point, he kind of like stepped aside for a bit, but this is full out quitting. So I'm kind of up in the air of what I'm going to be doing, but I won't miss this week, but end up where, just listening. And some people have reached out and things. So if anybody's interested, just let me know. But the idea we have, and it usually is a longer, like a 4-hour podcast. The DC one, we deep dive, but we also end up having a bunch of other shows. And in fact, tomorrow night we do, every time there's an absolute DC book, we end up having a live stream show Friday nights at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be doing Absolute Wonder Woman on Friday this week. I'm going to be doing it with Gray, who Josh, from now on, and kind of reaching out, and some people from the aficionado stuff, some people from our Patreon, because we have a ton of shows on that. And that's another thing, if you want to get a lot of shows. I do think I think each week there is, 16 unique podcasts. They're usually like more than an hour or so long that I do with a bunch of other people as well. Like a Walking Dead comics podcast, a Hellboy podcast, just a bunch of different things, like a Crisis Year One podcast, all that stuff going on. But one of the things that people have reached out that they really do like to watch or listen to things on YouTube more than, say, a traditional podcast anymore. Mm-hmm. So I'm putting up all of our podcasts on YouTube now as well as reviews and stuff. So it's just, we just look up Weird Science Comics. You find it all over the place.
Busy man. And then you write smutty songs on top of it.
Yeah, actually, if you want to get some smutty, dirty songs, you could go to Sus Records, where they'll be there. And there's a lot of them there as well. So that's another like side deal that I just have fun with.
What kind of coffee do you drink, man?
What's that?
What kind of coffee do you drink?
That's the thing. I do drink a lot of coffee, and I end up getting yelled at, but I do as much as I can. But I did have that, what was that one? That Death Wish coffee I did have for a while. That got a bit too much.
Start sweating, get the shakes.
I was having some problems.
Why am I having chest pains?
Again, when we talked
caffeine intake, apparently.
At the beginning, I said that's why I read a lot of things at like 3 a.m. That's when I usually get done. I'm done here. I do have to actually go and edit 6 podcasts. So I'll be
hell
up
with that.
Some time. I hate it.
We'll wrap up so you can get out of here. I gotta get my main man Drew out of here. But first, Drew, any books coming out soon?
So Silent Nights is out now for backers, and some people are starting to review it now. I'm hoping Jim and Weird Science.
I am. I'm planning on it this week, Drew. Actually, I have to reach out to Aaron to get some of the particulars to have people be able to know. He just gave me the book and didn't tell me where I could send people to get something. So I'm going to talk to him and then review it.
Oh, awesome.
Don't blame Aaron.
Okay, I'll be sure.
But I have read it and I loved it. So there you go. That's a little bit of a deal. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks you. Yeah, we worked hard on that. So you can reach out to me on Facebook, Dolan Waddick. You can reach out to me on Instagram, Dolan_Waddick, and I'm just posting all my books I got coming out this year, and I got a whole slew of them coming out this year. I don't even know where to start.
Yes, a ton of stuff, and then if you want to follow Drew, he doesn't play the X game, but he is on Facebook and Instagram. So go find him there. What's your Facebook and Instagram? I'll get your Facebook below, but
yeah, it's Dolan Waddick, and Instagram is Dolan_Waddick. Yeah.
And then I will also be writing a review for Silent Nights, so looking forward to that. I will most likely be getting to that Thursday, because tomorrow night I'm gonna be on Zach's channel. Thursday night I'm gonna write my review, and I've got to film that to get it up. And Friday night, I'm going to be back with Drew, maybe Kyle. We're going to talk about some new comic releases, some comic news. And then as we move into the new month, as we move into March, we will end up having Marvelous Monday for sure, making its comeback. It's got its copyrights cleared. We're good. We're good to go. So we'll get that actually scheduled on there. And then Drew and I will come in and, we're going to discuss the first Tuesday of February, the top 5 comics of February 2025. Again, I bring in the debuts. He has a general list. And as for the next book club, we don't have anything picked out yet, because if you remember, we shifted and pushed back with God Loves Man Kills. And I'm sorry, panel, but I had originally slated a Captain Falcon book to align with the movie coming out. But now that that's not happening, I am not reading that book. So we'll come up with a Marvel book for next month, for March, and go from there. So I'll probably figure that out within the next week and announce it. But thank you to everyone and the support tonight. The super chats were insane. You guys, I don't deserve y'all. Zach's, Cajun Corey, HH, Cannoli, Sassy, JK, Jana, like all you guys, you just rock it out. And huge thank you to the panel coming in again. I love talking comics. I love talking good comics with you guys, and that's really what I want this show to be, because there's plenty of not good stuff out there right now. But
it's so refreshing.
Oh yeah, it's so nice. And we're all nerds. Like, we love this. Like, I get on a high when I talk about these books. So this is probably my favorite show that I do. So a lot of fun, and thank you guys for just being willing to come in, and for the sakes of like Jim and Drew. Jim, I know how busy you are. Drew, you're freaking busy too, but staying up late. Appreciate it, and we will see you guys next week. Thank y'all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Get the fuck